I think it's pretty amazing that you guys chose to be here at a tax planning conference when you have Broadway right down the road. So first good choice of the day. Give yourself a nice round of applause.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. I am so excited that we are actually able to bring this in person. So as you guys know, we have done most of all of our webinars, our tax planning journeys online. So we've probably all hung out at least once online, if not twice. It's so nice to see everyone's faces here bright and early. I know Broadway can get really fun. I hope a few of you have at least hit it at least once while you've been here. We appreciate you being here so early. We would love to say thank you to the Nitrogen team for allowing us to do this before their event. So again, thank you to the Nitrogen team for allowing us to hang out for the next few hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so helpful and we're so grateful to Nitrogen. Also want to give a big shout out to the Holistiplan team, the go-to-market team, the marketing team for putting this event together. It has been months in the making. We've been working our butts off to make this happen and just so appreciate Alana, Tracy, Tori. You'll see the whole Holistiplan team around. We have the Holistiplan branded jackets on. So if you have any questions, our team will be out in the hallway during breaks.
Yes, so please come with those questions, drag the team. We're here all week. So if you guys are sitting here and you're like, I need to eat, I need to get out of here. Please, we are here all week. We are here to help you guys. So just again, find the team. We're in those great jackets. We will be able to help you. I don't think I introduced myself. I am Tori Hoppy, head of partnerships. This is Laura, our VP of marketing. So I think we kind of skipped that whole piece. So we're going to back up just a few seconds.
We thought the content was most important.
I just want to quickly go over our agenda. I know we're hanging out for at least the next 2-3 hours. So we are going to kick it off with Debbie Taylor. She's going to talk us through from closing business to client wins using tax planning to drive business. We'll have a quick 10-minute break, stretch those legs, grab extra coffee. I know I will be. Then I'm going to be hosting a fireside chat with Samantha Russell, the Chief Evangelist at FMG, and Nick Harding, SVP of Customer Success at Nitrogen. We are going to talk about leveraging your tech stacks for a better client experience. We know that technology is super important. How are you guys using that? And how can you maybe make that experience better for your clients? Then we will have our co-founder and CEO, Roger Pine, come up and talk about new product announcements that we will be launching later this year into 2025. So we've kind of have an Easter egg up on that screen for you if you are paying attention. So you'll kind of see what Roger's going to go over with that. Then we have a complimentary lunch with us, the Holistiplan team. So we'll hang out. You guys can ask questions, all of that good stuff. And then you will head on over to the kickoff for the Nitrogen Fearless Investment Summit.
So I wanted to take a step back and just kind of recognize the journey of Holistiplan. So our CEO, Roger Pine, CEO, co-founder, started Holistiplan in 2019. He was a financial advisor for 10 years, and he realized that doing tax planning at scale was extremely difficult. If you remember 5-6 years ago, when you were doing tax planning, you were doing it manually. Reading tax returns, page by page, they could be 50 to 100 pages long, extremely time consuming, prone to error. I see a lot of heads nodding, painful in general, right? And so that prompted Roger to create what you now know as Holistiplan. So he demoed it at the XYPN conference in 2019. It was a fintech competition. We actually won that competition, and that was the first, what you now know as the tax report, right? You upload a PDF of your tax return within 45 seconds, you get that beautiful high-level client deliverable that really drives the conversation around tax planning. And so when we fast forward to 2024, we have a team, we have a great team here. We have over 7,000 firms using Holistiplan, providing tax planning to even more clients. We are really proud to say that we're an award-winning software recognized as the top tax planning software by Kitces and by T3 and Inside Information. And so we are so proud to be here today to have a live in-person event with you, such a great audience. So really, really proud to be here. Here's a crazy statistic for you. Americans spend more on taxes than they do on food, clothing, and housing combined. That's insane. So
If
my
any of you
question-
have children out there, we know how much they eat. So this number is probably pretty staggering.
They do get a lot, yeah. But so my question to you is, what percentage of clients do you think receive tax planning as a service today? You can just shout it out. 20? 10? Okay. So 92% of clients expect tax planning, but only 25% are actually receiving it. So there's a pretty big gap there in terms of demand. How many of you in this room are currently doing tax planning? That's beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. So most of you are here today for one of three reasons, right? One is you're thinking about doing tax planning and you're here to learn more. Two, you're already doing tax planning, and this is really to help you scale it to more of your clients and scale it within your firm. Or three, you're part of the elite group who comes to all of our masterclasses, every webinar, every session Debbie Taylor runs, and you're really here to just top up your knowledge. But either way, we are here today to hopefully inspire you and to give you the tools so that your firm can provide richer financial planning for even more clients. And so with that, I would love to introduce to you Debbie Taylor, or as we call her here at Holistiplan, Queen Debbie. Debbie leads our monthly masterclass. She is amazing. Obviously, that's why we have her here today. Debbie is the founder and lead tax planner at Taylor Financial. She's a rock star. So please give Debbie the warmest welcome.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you,
Thank-
Debbie.
Thanks. So I'm really short, which means I'm gonna have to do something with this laptop over here. Which it's sort of not allowing me to do something with the laptop. Yeah, thanks. Okay, thanks. Great. Okay. Wow, even these podiums are made for taller people. Look at this. So bad. I feel like a child. Well, welcome everybody. I am thrilled to be here. It's so nice to be live. So many of you, I have seen you online. How many of you have seen me online over the last couple of years? Do I have any virgins in the room? Okay, you're in for a treat. It'll never be the same after me today. Okay. Um, we have, pretty much a packed house here. We have over 3,000 people live streaming us today. And so a lot of folks really interested in what we're talking about. It's great to be here to kick off the Nitrogen conference for all of you and to start your Holistiplan tax journey. So how many of you were up to 1:30 in the morning last night? Where I say, by the way, this is the participatory part of your Nitrogen conference. So I do expect everybody to be engaged. That's how I get my energy. Okay. So who's up, other than Tori, who was up till 1:30 in the morning last night? I got a few. Were you guys on Broadway or what were you doing? Just hanging in your room. Okay, we should have called each other. I was up to 1:30 in the morning because if you notice, the IRS released its inflation adjustments for 2025. Who noticed that? It was in the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, I got a few tax nerds in the room. And so I'm going this morning at 9 a.m. Okay, the IRS is basically conspiring against me. So they released their inflation adjustments yesterday. I'm like, holy cow, I need to read all this stuff because that might be important to my presentation because I have data in here that, of course, is outdated as of yesterday, right? And so I'm up till 1:30 in the morning, and it's the rabbit hole. It's the rabbit hole. And at 1:30 in the morning, I literally just pass out because I'm an early to morning girl and I'm an early to bed girl. So 1:30 in the morning, I'm exhausted. Okay. I go to bed at 1:30 after studying the IRS, notice, the articles about it, all of that. Then I wake up at 4 a.m. So let's do some math. I basically got 3 hours of sleep last night. So I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, none of that matters, right? None of it matters. The inflation adjustments don't matter. And so at 4 a.m., I started asking to myself, why doesn't it matter? Here is what matters, right? Here is what matters. This is the greatest time ever to be in this business. This is an amazing time because think about the three-part test. We're able to make money for clients, we're able to make money for ourselves, and we're able to do meaningful work. Does that not make this the best profession in the world? That's how I feel, okay? And think though, going back just 10 years ago, if you remember in 2015, 2016, do you remember what the pundits were saying about our profession less than 10 years ago? Does anybody remember? I see some old timers. What's that? Robos. That was in my notes last night at 4 a.m. in the morning. What else were they saying about us 10 years ago? They were writing us off as dead, right? They were saying, fire your financial advisor. They're not earning their fees. They're stealing from you. You don't need them. Just buy an index fund, right? That's what the mass media was telling our clients and telling the world 10 years ago. And I will tell you, I'm an optimist, but I was worried. I was worried for the future of our profession. I was worried that I would not have a business to hand down to my children. My daughter is here in the front row, to my team members. I've got Dominique back there, right? I was worried that we were not going to be able to survive the way the business was going. That was less than 10 years ago. And now, fast forward. And as Mark Twain supposedly once said, rumors of our death have been greatly exaggerated. We are back with a vengeance, right? We're back with a vengeance. And what changed? 5 years ago, right? With the vision of Roger, 5 years ago, they started Holistiplan, and that changed everything for this profession, right? It allowed us to include the third tier of planning services, which is tax planning, in a scalable way, right? In a scalable way. Helping clients save money, build wealth, saving, by the way, millions of dollars in lifetime taxes. And that's the number. When you calculate it, it is millions of dollars that you are helping these clients to save. And when you're saving clients millions of dollars in taxes, that means you're helping them to create millions of dollars of additional wealth. And who doesn't want to pay for that? Right? What client is going to turn their back on millions of dollars, right? And I call that the alpha, right? Quantifying your value, right? Who doesn't want to be a part of that? So what has Holistiplan allowed us to do? What is that third leg of my third leg of my highway, right? My 3-lane highway that we talk about so often, right? Justifying our fee, building lasting relationships, increasing wealth for clients, and making a difference in their lives. And so first, I do want to acknowledge Roger and his vision. I don't know where Roger is in this room. Did he step out? Because I know he's going later. He stepped out. I want to acknowledge Roger and his vision. I want to acknowledge him for changing millions of lives, because when you do the math, there's 35,000 Holistiplan subscribers. When you think about it, literally, Holistiplan and the work we're doing is changing millions of lives, and we owe a debt of gratitude then to Holistiplan and the amazing team. And now that I have talked about what really matters, we're going to start talking about inflation adjustments, okay? And so now we're going to get to the really good stuff. But anyway, I just, that was my 4 a.m. thoughts. Okay, so let's hop in. Closing business, client wins, using tax planning. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about tax planning, accelerating our growth, Tax Report 2.0, year-end tax planning strategies, key changes you can't afford to miss, using tax returns to expand wallet share, and then some wrap-up and some Q&A. So just, you know, I do like volunteers, like we said. If I don't have volunteers, I will be calling on you, okay? Just like in law school, all right? And so that helps keep us all awake. So first thing is, oh, I thought I had a little poll here. Did I miss that? No, they took it out. Okay, so do you offer tax planning services? And I think most of the room said yes. Do I have a few folks that don't offer tax planning services yet? And that's okay. I have a few. Okay, well, thank you for coming out and learning. Hopefully by the end, you will also be an apostle, and you will see, you know, why it's so important, right? So what are the ways that offering tax planning benefits your business? Looking for some volunteers here. How does it help your business? client retention. Love that.
Said, help them, hey, whether it's Pet B or do this different and save you tax money. So it's a huge value add.
Love that. Value add. Good. 100% helps to differentiate you during the discovery process. No question about that. I had somebody else back here. I like that. I like that. Good. I like that, right? Thanks to Holistiplan, right? And so all of these are true. Helps us to retain our existing clients, helps us to get referrals from existing clients and centers of influence, helps us to close more business and bigger business. How many people in this room have used tax planning as a way to increase your wallet share during the discovery process? Right? Okay, so that's one key takeaway then, is when you sit with a prospect, how many times have they said to you, oh, I have 3 advisors, I have 5 advisors, right? How many times? The reason they have so many advisors, have you ever asked yourself why this client or why this prospect has 5 advisors, has 7 advisors? Does anyone have a theory about this? They think they're diversified, right? And why do they think they're diversified? Is because they see no difference among these advisors. Think about it. They think we're all the same. And because they think we're all the same, they see no risk in spreading out the assets and having assets with 5, 7 advisors, whatever they're doing, okay? When you show up during a discovery meeting and you're talking about tax planning and you're talking about the 3-lane highway or whatever you have built that you feel comfortable talking about, you are now differentiating yourself, and it gives you an opportunity then to pull in that wallet share. And basically then what we're going to say to clients is, I am different than the rest. We are doing tax planning, and the only way I can do tax planning effectively is if I have all those assets in-house. How many of you have had that conversation? Not so many. Okay, I will tell you, I have that conversation every time I sit in front of a prospect, and I'm sitting in front of prospects all week. That's basically half of what I do at my firm. Half is business development and half is the tax planning. I am sitting in front of prospects almost every single day, 3 million, 5 million plus prospects. And every single conversation, they have multiple advisors. And I tell them, I am different from them. And for me to do this work, I need all of your assets to come over here. And then all of a sudden, a $2 million prospect becomes a $5 million prospect or $7 million prospect or what have you. And so this is part of what I want you thinking about then, offering tax planning. And it helps you to protect your fees, right? How many times have you sat in front of a prospect and you said, my fee is fill in the blank? And they said, well, Jim or Susie down the road will do it for 80 basis points. Jim or Susie will do it for 90 basis points. And I look that prospect square in the eye and I say, they don't do what I do. They're charging you 80 or 90 basis points and they don't do what I do. So if you're willing to pay them 80 or 90 basis points, then you should have no problem paying me 100 or 110 basis points to add this tax planning that's going to save you millions of dollars in lifetime taxes. So we referenced some of these charts Laura did in the intro. And so I'm going backwards here. Wait a second. Okay, so the question here is, do you want to be a top growing firm, right? Do you want to be a top growing firm? And if you want to be a top growing firm, then you need to offer this trifecta of services is what I call it. And that is really my 3-lane highway. That's your investment management, that's your financial planning, and that's your tax planning. That's your 3-lane highway. However you want to visualize it, however you want to explain it to your prospects. But the idea here is these top growing firms are offering additional services, and I can't think of a better additional service to offer than tax planning. Essentially, the top growers are doing more. And so what's happened then in the profession is we don't have the fee compression that they all were predicting. We have some profit compression, right? Because we're offering additional services. But let's face it, That's okay because we're all making a lot of money, okay? And the technology is enabling us to provide these additional services. And so let's roll up our sleeves. If we're going to be top growing firms, we need to act like top growing firms. We need to invest in our firms, invest in our people, invest in our technology, and offer at a minimum this trifecta of services. So here now, I call this chart the Mind the Gap, okay? And this is from CEG Insights. And what you see then is the tax planning. And you see that 90%, 89% of clients are looking for tax planning. And you see that same data over and over again, 89%, 91%, right? It's pretty consistent. These high net worth clients want tax planning. But then you see that only about 22 to 25% of them say that they are getting the tax planning. And that's what I call the gap, is that we're all running around pretending that we're providing these services, but the clients, if you ask them, they say that they're not getting the services. So what's happening here? I'll tell you what's happening in my view. First of all, a lot of people are saying they're offering tax planning, but they're not, right? Because it's become the talismanic phrase. Do you do this? Oh, yeah. Do you do that? Oh, yeah, right? They're there. They're trying to close. It's a talisman. So I tell you that's number one. Number two, some people are loosely defining tax planning. They say, oh, I do some tax loss trading at the end of the year. That counts as tax planning. Check the box. The client is not seeing that as tax planning. So how do we address that? Right? How do we address that? Well, that is our service calendar, right? That's thinking about tax planning as a year-round sport, a year-round activity. It is not a year-end December Q4 idea. And so what I really encourage all of you, and some of you have seen my webinars where I've talked about the service calendar, I've shared the service calendar, I've just updated our service calendar for 2025. I'm constantly tinkering with it. And maybe some of you sort of came to it a little late in the game where you're like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But now is the time to start mapping out 2025. And so what I would urge you to do is revisit your service calendar. Document what are you doing for clients? What should you be doing for clients? And create a service calendar and communicate that to your clients. Put it on your website. Talk about it in your discovery meetings and talk about it in your regular review meetings with clients. So we have review meetings twice a year. We call it surge meeting, right? We have them right after tax season and we have year end, okay? So right now we're going through the year end meetings. And on our agenda, we talk about our service calendar. We literally explain to the client the services that we have been doing for them throughout the year. So every opportunity you have, you need to be communicating what you're doing for the clients, the value that you're providing. Don't leave it to chance and don't assume that they know what you're doing. That is one way to close the gap. So now we have our service calendar. We are communicating our service calendar. We're delivering on our service calendar. What does that create? It creates happy clients. And we have happy clients, then they refer more business to us. And so what does that look like? This is from the Charles Schwab RIA benchmarking study. And what you see is 60% of new business comes from referrals, comes from existing clients and comes from CEOs, but mostly existing clients. And so what we want to do then is if we service the heck out of our clients, we're going to create referable, right, clients that will refer to us, and that will be a major way for us to grow our business. Now, you do see other marketing efforts can contribute also to growing the business, but the core of it is referrals from clients and referrals from COIs. So let's again invest in our business, invest in our clients so that we can grow. And here is my beloved 3-lane highway. Who here has seen the 3-lane highway? Okay, about half of you. This is how I describe wealth management to my prospects. And so if I could only bring 2 pieces to a desert island, this would be one of them. And the other one would be my service calendar. I have closed more business with this 3-lane highway and with my service calendar. Literally, if I walk into an appointment and I just have those 2 things, I will close. Okay, I will close. And so when I sit with the prospect, I will literally run them through this. And I will say, this is how we view wealth management at Taylor Financial Group. Investment management is table stakes. That's what you're doing on your own. That's what your 10 advisors are doing, right? That's what you've come to expect from an advisor. Financial planning, yeah, you probably have some plan. We take it very seriously at Taylor Financial Group, and I'll talk to them a little bit about our in-depth planning process. But really, really, what helps us to win this business is what I call family tax planning, and I call it the lonely lane, right? I call it the lonely lane. And this is the lane that could save you millions of dollars of lifetime taxes. So you want to think about what wealth management means to you and means to your firm, so that when you sit with prospects, you have a value proposition. You have a way to explain, just conceptually how you view the management of their wealth. And then the service calendar is how you're executing on it, right? What you're actually delivering. Because let's face it, every time a prospect is sitting in front of you, what is in their mind? What is the prospect asking themselves when they sit in front of you? What's that? What can you do for me? How are you going to earn your fee? Right? How are you going to earn your fee? And sometimes they're too polite to say it like that, but everyone's thinking it, right? Every single prospect is thinking, how are you going to earn your $20,000, your $30,000, your $10,000 a year? Every single one of them. And so you need to demonstrate how you're going to earn that, and that is with that service calendar. So we want to provide our value through the lifetime tax planning. And this is where we talk about the three ghosts. And so very high level then, when you're thinking about tax planning, it's not about today. It's not about saving money on the 2024 tax return, right? I call that small ball, right? But we're in the big leagues. And so you want to think about the three ghosts is what we call them. And the three ghosts are looking at the client's tax rate today. Now, how are we able to look at a client's tax rate today? What magical software enables us to do that? Hello? Thank you. Okay. So we want to look at today's ghost, right? Present ghost, and that is using Holistiplan, looking at the current tax rate. But then we want to look at, ghost of the future, right? And the ghost of the future is this client in retirement. What does their tax rate look like there? And then we want to look at the ghost even more of the future, and that would be maybe the widow's penalty, or that would be maybe how the children's taxes are being treated under the Secure Act. And the idea here then is we want to pay taxes at our lowest lifetime rate, our lowest lifetime rate. And how you start that whole analysis is looking at where our taxes are today. And then again, we've done webinars on this, how to project out what future taxes will look like, and then compare them to the taxes today. And again, the way you know that is through Holistiplan. But high level then, this is how we want to be thinking about our tax planning. Okay. Do you collect tax returns every year? All right, that is a question. Who's collecting tax returns every year? Okay, most are, some are not. Here's how I want you to think about collecting tax returns. Collecting tax returns is a sine qua non of tax planning, right? Sine qua non. And what I'm saying then is you cannot do tax planning without the tax returns. So one of the things you need to do is create a system in your office, a repeatable process of how you're going to collect tax returns every year so you get all of them in. We have no less than 30 outreaches to get our clients' tax returns, and they're very well trained. They're trained even from the very beginning in the discovery meetings with prospects. From the very beginning, we set that expectation. So again, going into 2025, if you're not already doing that, these are the things you need to be thinking about as far as your service offerings, building out that service calendar. But performing the tax analysis has never been easier, right? Because we have that tax report, and Holistiplan has rolled out tax report 2.0. Who here is using 2.0? Okay, so about half of you. So 2.0 is available. They're calling it beta. Don't let that fool you. It is available. And as of 2025, it's going to be like the standard what they're using. But the tax report 2.0 has very cool features. And so what I like is it's got some nice pie charts here, breaking out the different types of tax treatment, which is something that a lot of clients don't understand and get confused by. So we like that chart. And then here, you even see tax efficiency. So when I look at this, I'm like, what could be really cool about this? This could be cool, for example, if you're in the discovery meeting with a client, with a prospect, and you get their tax return, you could run it through Holistiplan, and then 30 seconds later, you could identify tax inefficiencies in their current portfolio, right? So that could be interesting. Also, you want to look at this for your existing clients to identify potential tax inefficiencies. Now, sometimes tax inefficiencies make sense. You might have foreign stocks in the portfolio have a tendency not to have qualified dividends, right? You might have taxable bonds. So I'm not saying every time you see a tax inefficiency, you throw out the investment. What I'm saying is you identify it and then you review to make sure that this investment still makes sense in the portfolio. Same thing with long-term versus short-term gains. You don't want to be sloppy about your trading. You want to make sure that you make it for that full year to hop into long-term. So again, something to look at, particularly again, if it is a prospect bringing a portfolio to you. It's a quick way to identify tax inefficiencies with their prior advisor as you're talking to them. Good. So that's a little bit about Tax Report 2.0. We're going to hop into 10 year-end tax planning strategies. What do I not like about the idea of year-end tax planning strategies? What word in there do you think I don't like? Exactly. What is my problem with year-end tax planning strategies? Exactly. Is tax planning is a year-round sport. So I'm putting together these year-end tax planning strategies, and I'm like, why am I doing this, right? Because these are things that you should be working on all year. Having said that, we are in Q4. It is now or never. This is like last call on Broadway. And so for clients who haven't been listening to you, or maybe you didn't get around to some of this stuff in 2024, it is now or never. So let's just take a look. First of all, high level then, we want to be creating tax diversification in these portfolios. And so every time you look at a portfolio, you want to be thinking about the three buckets. And is that pre-tax, tax-deferred bucket getting too big? And what's the number then? Is I don't want to see those bigger than $1.5 or $2 million. And so if you see that and it's possibly growing to be $1.5 to $2 million, or could grow that pre-tax bucket, then you want to, make some moves in that area. Roth conversions, obviously now or never, right? We've got 2 months left to the year. Now, again, you should be considering and working on Roth conversions from January, okay? And why? So in 2022, the market hit its first bottom in June. Who was doing Roth conversions in June of 2022? Who in this room was doing them? I got you. I'm going to raise my hand for that. Okay. All right. June of 2022. You know why? Because we were ready. Because in Q1, we mapped out what we thought high level Roth conversions should be for these clients. And so when the market pulled back in June of 2022, we did a round of Roth conversions. What did we do in October when the market hit its bottom almost exactly 2 years ago? We went back and did another round of Roth conversions. Okay. And then we finished the year for whatever was left over. Okay. Now here's the real advanced question. Who came back and did Roth conversions in January of 2023, knowing that the market was going to bounce back and tech was still beaten up? Who did that? Who had the guts to do that? We did. We were converting in January of 2023, breaking every rule of Roth conversions, because the rules, you're supposed to do them at the end of the year, right? But in January of 2023, market was still down. They were writing off technology for dead. We didn't agree with it. We came back in January of 2023 after aggressively doing Roth conversions in 2022 and did Roth conversions of technology in January of 2023. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we got like NVIDIA up 170% year to date. We got Microsoft up 70% since January of 2023. Our clients think we're geniuses that we did those Roth conversions. And so what's the point here? Is be willing to break the rules. Those rules of thumb that you were all trained on for years, those rules were there before you had the technology, before you had the ability to do case-by-case analysis for these clients. And so do not follow those rules of thumb. The market could get a little bouncy. We've had a nice 2 years, but market could get a little bouncy. You're going to have opportunities to do these Roth conversions when the market pulls back. Be ready to jump on them, okay, and make some money for your clients. Of course, asset location is critical. And so particularly for those younger clients who are putting money into their 401ks, you're going to have those conversations with them about funding Roth 401ks instead of the traditional 401ks. All right, tax loss trading and capital gain harvesting. And so capital gain harvesting is interesting. Do not forget that some of your clients literally could be in 0% capital gains brackets. And how do you know that? You have Holistiplan, right? You're running them through Holistiplan. You can look at their tax brackets. So do not ignore those clients who are in those lower tax brackets. They might have concentrated positions of Apple. They say, hey, it's too much. I don't want to sell, right? Well, they could literally be in a 0% capital gains bracket. That could be an opportunity for you. Or just in general, 15% ain't so bad, right? To take that risk off the table. So let's think about the capital gain harvesting and then tax loss trading. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Debbie, the market is up. I have no opportunity for tax loss trading. But yes, you do, right? Don't look at just the bottom portfolio value. There could be some managers that have not done a good job. There could be sectors that have not performed well, small cap value, commodities, or there could be individual tax lots embedded within those portfolio positions. So dig in and look at it. And here's the other thing. Almost every time we bring on a new client, their previous advisor had not been doing tax loss trading. So almost every single time we dig in and we find hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax losses that we can then take advantage of when we're onboarding a new client. So as part of your onboarding process, make sure you're looking at that and aggressively handling the tax loss trading. It's amazing how many advisors are neglecting that work. Distribution planning. Yes. Review benefits and strongly consider the Roth 401ks. So now is the time those benefit plans are coming out. They are chock full of tax planning opportunities. And here's what's so nice. We used to manually read through those benefit booklets. Now, who's there to help you? Holistiplan and AI, right? You don't have to manually go through those benefit booklets anymore. You can run it through AI and have AI help you identify different areas of tax planning opportunities in those benefit booklets, right? Between Holistiplan and AI, right? This is lightening the load for us. Tons of opportunities with the benefit statement. Maximizing retirement plan contributions between now and the end of the year, right? I mean, that goes without saying. Don't forget NUA, net unrealized appreciation, okay? So that has very strict time deadlines. So make sure you're keeping track of that for clients. And then health savings accounts, right? Obviously, let's get that in. The distribution planning, the annuities, particularly the QLACs, right? And then estate planning and gifting. And we're going to have more on estate planning and gifting later. And then I'm going to add number 11 here is charitable planning, right? Is gifting before the end of the year, charitable planning, right? And so those are some quick year-end tips that we need to be thinking about. All right. Tax Shaped Up 2025, key changes you can't afford to miss. This is part of what kept me up till 1:30 in the morning last night. Okay, so the first thing is just a quick review of the July guidance that we finally got from the IRS and Treasury Department on inherited IRAs. And so this is a lot of text. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's just bottom line this, okay? Here are the essential questions that you need to ask that will cover 90% of the situations that before you. And let me just mention here, obviously there are some nuances. So anytime you have an inherited IRA, you need a process. And really the idea here is anything that you do more than once in your office, you should have a process for. You should have a checklist, right? That should be your mantra. And when you look at even like the Schwab benchmarking study or any of these practice management studies, top growing firms have definable written processes for over 50% of their activities. So everybody here, if you're doing something more than once, particularly if it's a critical high stakes activity, like addressing an inherited IRA, you must have a written documented process. But here are the key questions that I want you to ask yourself, just very high level, right? Is, first of all, we're assuming the death was after 2019. The death was in 2020 or later, right? That's when the Secure Act applies. Was the death before the RBD? Right? Required beginning distribution. Was the death before? Okay. If the death was before the RBD, then you ask yourself, is it an eligible designated beneficiary or just a qualified designated beneficiary, right? Those are the key questions, right? That's the funnel. Now, if the death was after the RBD, which means RMDs started, once RMDs have started, RMDs must continue. So if you turn on the faucet has got to continue. So if somebody dies in 2020 or later, Secure Act applies, RMDs had started, then RMDs must continue. And then again, you need to ask yourself, was it an eligible designated beneficiary or was it just a qualified designated beneficiary? Okay. And then of course, there is the third category, which is the not qualified designated beneficiary. Those are like estates and trusts. That's that third category. So very high level, those are the key questions you ask yourself. And there are flow charts available out there for you that you can track this and create your process. But simplifying what is very complex, that's how you should be thinking about it. Okay. Secure Act 2.0 expands 401k automatic enrollment. So this is new beginning in 2025. And what's the bottom line? It is auto enrollment of 3% at a minimum. That means that your clients will have to opt out if they don't want to be in a 401k, okay, going forward in 2025. So something good to know. Roth accounts are supposed to be available as a new 401k enrollment option. One of the things obviously we're all seeing is some of the actuaries and the TPAs have been a little slow to implement some of these Secure Act changes, but there is technically then an opportunity for the employer contribution to go to a Roth 401k. It is something we want to educate our clients on. And of course, that's where the benefits booklets can be helpful as well, because your clients may not be paying attention to this. I want to give you a pro tip. And listen to this, because you're not going to be reading about this too much anywhere. You have to actually really, really dig for this. Many of your clients may have what I'm calling hybrid accounts, where it's a Roth 401k and a traditional 401k mixed, okay? Anyone have? I actually have one, okay? It exists, it's a thing, right? Okay. The IRS, and I believe part of this is because they don't have the technology to track this well. If you have a client that has, again, I'm calling it a hybrid traditional and Roth 401k, right? They have both of them, okay? I'm calling it a hybrid. Okay, if they have that, then when that client dies, the beneficiary will be required to take RMDs on the whole amount, even though part of the account is a Roth 401k. Okay, now that is contrary to the guidance and to everything you've been reading, where Roth 401ks are not going to have RMDs, right? So that's the headline, right? No RMDs. So now you have clients saying, hey, I don't need to roll my Roth 401k over to you, or my hybrid 401k. I'm calling it that. They're saying, I don't need to roll that over to you because there are no RMDs out of my Roth 401k and I don't want to pay your extra fees, right? So it became a little bit harder over the last year or two to convince them to do that rollover. Well, now there's an issue because RMDs could be required if they die and that hybrid 401k is still there and not rolled into an IRA. So something to be thinking about. Again, it is not the headline. You have to dig for that, but something to know. And again, another reason then why they should be rolling that over to the IRA. Yes.
Separation between the employer 401k Roth and your overall other qualified plans when you take money out of the Roth for taxability, is that still there?
Yeah, let's talk about that offline. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. All right. So we've got the higher Secure Act 401k contribution limit. Okay. And the best way to look at that is a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so you've got this weird donut, okay, in the middle there, that age 60 to 63, 4 years. And what you see then are additional contributions that can be made during that 4-year period. Now, again, this is a projection for 2025 based on yesterday's numbers that just came out. What I'm seeing here is that instead of $24,000 for next year, it's going to be $23,500 is the newest estimate. And instead of 11,000 for the catch up. It could be 11,250. And then instead of 8,000, it could be 7,500. So you see, again, some of this could be like $500 or so off. To be very clear, this is a projection for 2025, and the IRS still needs to release these final numbers. This is a projection. But the idea here is still the same, is that you will have clients in that 4-year period who are able to contribute close to 50% more as catch-up contributions. You want to make sure then that your clients know about that and that they're taking advantage of that. By the way, just real quick, for 2025, the new numbers are 23,500 and 7,500. So it's a 31,000 total for the 401k contributions. Just real quick on that, those numbers being released last night. Okay. So the catch-up elective deferrals limited to Roth contributions for some employees. Remember, this was put in place. They had to defer it because, again, the TPAs, the custodians, couldn't figure out how to put this in place. So this got deferred to 2026. So we don't have to do anything about it yet, but I wanted to include this in here. Keep your eye on it because this will be an opportunity for clients to have those catch-ups pushed into Roth 401ks, which could be a nice planning opportunity. All right. Let's talk about the TCJA in our last 10 minutes. And so the TCJA sunset is literally a year from now. I remember in 2017 when the TCJA was passed, they said, oh, it's going to sunset at the end of 2025. And I thought, my gosh, that's a decade away, right? That's a decade away. Well, it's amazing how basically a decade can come and go with literally a blink of an eye. And so now at the end of next year, we have a TCJA that is sunsetting. We have seven rates, okay? It will continue to be 7 rates if we go back to what it was, but the rates will be slightly different, okay? And so let's take a look at some of the changes potentially and a little bit of a refresher. So interestingly, again, as of last night, the lifetime exclusion for 2025 is going to be $13.9 million. 13.99, okay? What I love about that, it's a round number. It's basically $14 million. So it's a lot easier to remember. So I love that, okay? The annual exclusion is going up to $19,000 starting in 2025. And so again, those were just announced yesterday. Here is the chart though of the lifetime exclusion. If there is sunset, then the lifetime exclusion could be cut in half, right? Okay. Marginal brackets may become less favorable. So let's take a look at that. So for the 10% tax bracket, basically no difference. And for the 12% tax bracket, they would be going up to 15%. So TCJA sunsets, 10% is not affected. Those in the 12% go up to 15%. Those in the 22% basically go up to the 25%. All right. Let's look at now different income levels. $205,000 married filing joint, you go from 24 to 28%. $300,000 married filing joint, you go from 24 to 33%. If you are between $400,000 to $500,000, you're about the same. And if you are $600,000 to $700,000, you go from 35 to 39.6%. So what you're seeing here and what the data tells us is that 60% of taxpayers actually pay less money as a result of the TCJA. And so I know it was billed as, oh, this helps the rich, it benefits the wealthy. But the truth of it, and yes, it did benefit the wealthy, but the truth of it is 60% of taxpayers pay less in taxes under the TCJA. And so at the end of next year, when we see a lot of the battling, I mean, a lot of it's going to start, it's already started, right? There's a lot of your clients that are benefiting by the TCJA, rich and poor or not as well off. And so it's going to be very interesting to see where the chips fall on this. But when you dig into these numbers, it's also fascinating to see, literally at almost every level, most people are doing better off. With the exception of $400,000 to $500,000, you're getting treated about the same. The standard deduction, remember that was almost doubled. So TCJA expires, that could get cut in half. And right now, 90% of taxpayers take the standard deduction. Prior to the TCJ, it was 65%. And so most clients, as you can see when you look at tax returns, are now taking the standard deduction. So that's going to be very interesting. Just as an aside, as of yesterday, standard deduction is $30,000 for married filing joint and $15,000 for single. So the one thing I liked about all these inflation adjustments that I was looking at last night is that there's all these round numbers, makes it a little bit easier to remember. Tax credits become more limited. So if you remember, the TCJA increased the child tax credit, doubled it from $1,000 to $2,000, and made it available if you had $400,000 of income. Okay, that is like unprecedented. The whole point of tax credits is to help middle class, lower middle class. The idea that you could qualify for a child tax credit at $400,000 was like really revolutionary. And so we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, child tax credits are very popular, even with both parties. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do on that. And then different tax deductions may return. What's so nice about having Holistiplan is it's right there. Everything is summed up for us. But again, it's going to be interesting to see TCJ did limited a lot of tax deductions and instead replaced it with a higher standard deduction. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Trump was in Long Island saying that he was going to do away with SALT. You know, it's just everybody's promising everything on the campaign trail. And Harris is also making promises. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out. The estate gift tax exemption could be halved. And so, like I said, it is now $13.9 million in 2025. Here's how you need to think about it in planning for the clients. Are they in the splash zone is what I call it. If the lifetime exemption gets cut in half and goes down to about $6.5 to $7 million, okay, do you have clients that are at risk? Do you have clients who are married who are worth about $12 million or so? Do you have single clients that are worth about $6 or $7 million? If you have clients who are in the splash zone, then you might be thinking about doing some basic estate planning with them, going for what I call the low-hanging fruit. And so what's some of that low-hanging fruit? Some of the low-hanging fruit is doing a qualified personal residence trust, which you can do it on your principal residence in a vacation home. Spousal lifetime access trust, SLAT. If they're not ready to give away the money, right, then set up a SLAT and you get the estate, the assets out of your estate, and you put it in your spouse's estate and freeze the values, but you still basically have access to it, right? So think about a SLAT for somebody who maybe is a little bit early in their journey, but still is in the splash zone. Charitable remainder trust and GRATs, grantor retained annuity trust. Lots of low-hanging fruit here. Have these conversations. Do not wait until the end of 2025 to try to visit an estate planning attorney. It's not going to work well. All right. Using the tax return for increasing wallet share. I love a tax return because it is a great forensic tool. It helps us to do all of these things, but it also helps us to increase wallet share and to review cash holdings. And so let's look at this. Here is the Schedule B. In the old days, I'd look at the Schedule B, but you don't need to do that anymore because Holistiplan has that tax report and it lists here then where the client has their assets. Now, in the old days, I would just have to look at the interest, at the dividend income part, right? In the old days, I'd say, oh, do they have stocks at Vanguard? Do they have stocks at other custodians? And then you could back into it. If you assume a 2% dividend yield, it looks to me like this random client has $500,000 at Vanguard, right? So then you can start asking them, offering a second opinion, wanting to review the statements. So in the old days, you just have to look at the dividend income. Now, what do you have to look at? I love that the answer to every question is Holistiplan, okay? I just love that, okay? Sometimes the answer is not Holistiplan, okay? Sometimes there is a different answer, like what color is my suit jacket? You can't yell out Holistiplan. No, you can't do that, okay? I'm wearing a purple jacket, okay? It was enabled by Holistiplan, okay? All right, what is the other thing that we have to be looking at, right? Other than dividend income. Who said interest income? Right, okay? For 15 years, we had TINA, right? There is no alternative. So you didn't have to worry about your clients stockpiling cash, money markets, CDs, because they would come to you and they were angry and they're saying, I can't get any interest, so I have to give you this money. And they're like gritting their teeth and they're like not wanting to let go of it, right? And now they're like, ha, Okay, I've been waiting for this day for 15 years. I can go buy a CD and get 5% and feel like I'm a champion. Okay, of course, it doesn't matter that the market was up 20 to 30% for that time period, and the interest income from the CD is getting taxed at the ordinary income tax rate. None of that seems to matter. Oh, and inflation was also 4 or 5% during that time period. Whatever. Okay, now when you look at the tax returns, you need to aggressively be looking at their Schedule B, at this report, because these clients are stockpiling cash on you, and they're forgetting the money market, they're forgetting the CD. And by the way, those banks are rolling over those CDs, wait, when they come due 6 months, 9 months, they're rolling them over and not telling clients that they're getting a lower rate. That original CD was a teaser rate. And the Wall Street Journal reported on this several months ago, so look it up. They reported on like March or April, that these banks are rolling over these CDs. They do not have to disclose the lower interest. They're calling it was a teaser rate. And now these clients are not going to get those same rates on those CDs. So you need to aggressively be looking at this and identifying this and having conversations with these clients to get this money off the sidelines. So we did this over the summer. We sent out emails to these clients. We explained all the reasons why they should be having a conversation with us about these outside accounts. We did it when the market pulled back in like July. We sent them out, but now you could be sending out these same letters talking about how interest rates are going down and you want to do a review with the clients and get this money invested. Okay? All right, wrap up and Q&A, and we are right on time. So here's how I want to challenge you, is going into 2025, how are you going to raise the bar? Right? How are you going to raise the bar with your practice? So number one, you want to be offering tax planning services to attract and retain high net worth clients. And one of the ways I want to challenge you is leveraging Holistiplan to provide these services to more of your clients. So when you did not have the technology, you would use tax review, you'd pull out that tax return, you'd have your little checklist. I know all about it. I was doing it for years. And you would do it for your highest level clients, or you would do it in response to a question. I'm selling my business. I'm getting divorced. Could you look at my tax return? So it's either reactive or it was for the select view at the very top, because let's face it, we could not in any scalable, high quality fashion provide tax planning. We really couldn't before Holistiplan, okay? Now with Holistiplan then, I want you to think differently about this. It shouldn't just be for those top 10 or 20 clients, and it shouldn't be reactive. You can run that tax report for every single one of your clients, or all your A through C clients, or however you want to look at it. You can be providing this service, having this dialogue, and if for no other reason, you run this tax report to look to see where those away assets are. Okay, if for no other reason. Now, if you're like, well, Debbie, we have a financial plan, we have Money Guide Pro, we have eMoney. First of all, it's probably a little out of date because they're stockpiling that cash and they're not telling you about it. They've forgotten about the cash that they're stockpiling, right? What is the absolute most reliable way to identify the away assets? It's not the financial plan you have for them. The 100% most reliable way is going to the source document, and that is the tax return. So if for no other reason, you get the tax return from every single client, you go to that tax report and you look to see where their money is, it will pay for itself 1,000 times over. You assign it to a junior person on your team, your operations guys or gals, okay? You give them this project and you let them totally run with it. It will pay for itself 20 times over, okay? Number two, we want to be using the tax report to identify tax inefficiencies, right? Provide tax planning. Let's think about TCJA expiring. Let's keep our eye on the ball, particularly from an estate planning standpoint, right? And again, we mentioned wallet share. And here then is my last thought on this, and we mentioned this a few times, is let's go into 2025 building that service calendar. Let's be intentional about what we're doing. Let's lay out all the amazing services that you're providing to clients. Let's document it and let's share it. Let's share it with our prospects. Let's share it with our clients. Let's communicate it so they know what you're doing, so that it's not going to be 25% of them saying that you're providing tax services. It's going to be 95% or 99% of your clients saying they provide tax services. And with that, then, I want to thank you for being an amazing crowd. Why can't I get to my last slide? It is telling me no. Okay, I had a slide. It is a football player. He's going like this, catching the football, okay? And I end every presentation with a picture of fortune favors the bold. And so that is my way of encouraging everybody to go out, be bold, embrace life. And I thank God every day that we're in this business when we are, because Holistiplan and all this amazing technology is allowing us to literally have the best time of our lives. And so thank you with that. You guys have been great. Thank you. Enjoy your conference.
Any Q&A for Debbie?
Okay, waving hands. Okay.
Look at all these hands. Okay.
Hey, Debbie, thank you. Do y'all do tax returns, or do you align yourself with firms that do the returns?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was a tax preparer in a previous life. I'm a second generation CPA. So I grew up preparing tax returns. That's how my mother and I used to bond when I was a child. Okay. I started doing the tax returns and I hated it. And so that's when I went into personal, financial planning and wealth management. So we align with a tax preparer. We share a vault with him, and I'm sending a ton of clients to him. But we do not prepare tax returns. I believe that it's become heavily commoditized. I think it's a huge headache. It's very hard to hire the talent to do it. So yes, it can be a great revenue generator in the sense of, cross-selling and all of that. No question about it. But I think it's very difficult to execute. Does that help to answer the question? Yeah. And by the way, the clients or the prospects, they'll say, hey, do you guys prepare tax returns? And I know they'd love it if I said yes. And I say, you send us the tax return, we run it through our special software, and we will do all the analysis and all the thinking and all the tax planning on it. And they're like, sounds good to me. Right? Because really they're viewing their tax preparer is just a scrivener at this point, right? They're not seeing high value to that person. So yes, they're asking you that question because there's a certain convenience to that. But once you're like, hey, just keep going to that guy, but get the tax return to me and I'll handle it, everything from there. And they're like, great, that's good. Help a little bit. Good. What do you got?
I know on one of the master classes you talked about, or Holistiplan did, about being able to upload directly from the IRS website. Is that in place yet? Are they still working on it, or is that?
So we have an integration. Is this working? Yeah, we have an integration with a company called Tax Status where you could do that.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question was, can you upload tax returns directly from the IRS? And the answer is not directly from the IRS, but we do have an integration with a company that can do that. And it's listed on our integrations page.
Good. Yes, young man.
I'm newer to Holistiplan. I want to thank you for your energy. I didn't expect at 9 o'clock to feel so excited about tax planning. So being newer to Holistiplan, are you willing to share your service calendar?
Oh, yeah.
And how do we get access to that just to kind of see how you're using it in your firm?
So one of the things that you'll see is I literally open everything I do, okay? And I work night and day, and everything I create is available. And so we reviewed the service calendar in January of this year for our subscribers. And I went through in excruciating detail how I thought the year should be set up. So that is available on the January webinar, our service calendar. Now, I just updated the service calendar literally last week. And so we will probably, everything is subject to Laura's approval, but we will probably start January off again with another service calendar review as to how 2025 should be set up. But if you go to January 2024, it's literally going to be 80 to 90% the same. I tinkered with a few things. Does that help you a little bit? Good. Yes.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask this question, perhaps because I'm a bit of a dinosaur in the industry. But I'm a CFP, CHSC, whatever, but I've never formally been trained in taxes outside of my studies. So also, from what I understand, I'm not licensed to really talk about accountancy, so to speak. So I guess my question is, how do I embolden myself? Yes, get Holistiplan, I get it. Thank you. And the other question is, how do I pursue tax planning and not offend the bastion of objectivity whoever runs to, and that's their tax preparer? How do you take this concept and say, hey, I'm here to work with you, not against you?
I love that. So it's like 4 questions embedded in one. So, so I love that. And so we did a webinar it's probably one of my first ones of why we can do tax planning, how it should not be a compliance issue. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback on it, and a lot of folks still listen to it. So I'd encourage you to go to that, where I literally go through the IRS rulings, what the IRS is concerned about, what they're not concerned about. And I think what's happened, and and so you're sort of say you're a dinosaur, right? Is traditionally we were not really allowed to do the tax planning. And part of it is we just weren't doing it so much, right? And so then when Holistiplan came out and we're like, oh, we can do all these things, then people were somewhat resistant to it because the history wasn't there, the culture wasn't there. But here's how I would challenge that is we were doing tax planning in a lot of ways. We just didn't think about it, right? So what is tax planning? Tax planning is recommending a Roth IRA, recommending a Roth conversion, muni bonds over taxable bonds, right? Like tax loss trading. Like when you look at what we're doing day in and day out, there was a lot of tax planning embedded in the work we did. We just didn't call it tax planning. So now Holistiplan comes, enables us to do more tax planning. We're like, holy cow, we've never done this. This is tax planning. I don't know if I can do that, but we've been doing tax planning all along. And so what's happened then is over the last 5 years, and it's been really amazing to watch the shift, these compliance departments are coming around to see that, by the way, we should be doing this work. My belief is that there is liability in not doing this work. And actually what's happened is one of the large RIAs, I don't know if you saw it, is getting sued by a client because they did not do Roth conversions. Okay. And so that was always my belief as this technology becomes available to us, this should be a part of our services. And at some point, then it's going to raise the expectation as to what we should be providing to clients. And if we do not provide it to clients, then I believe that's where the exposure is going to be. And you're slowly starting to see that. So, I know you asked like 4 sub questions within the question. So that's sort of part of it. Okay. As far as like, quote, the training. So I passed the CPA exam literally like 30 years ago, which is sort of scary because I'm only like 38. But yeah, I was a little bit of a prodigy. And so like 30 years ago, like the CPA exam, yes, it has a tax section, but it doesn't look anything like what taxes are today. And so sometimes people get caught up, oh, do I get my EA, my enrolled agent? Do I need this designation? Do I need that? And I will tell you this. Roger and Holistiplan are so obsessively and truly mission driven about providing education to all of you. Okay. And I mean that. Okay. So we are out there, they're spending a fortune bringing education to you guys. And my mantra, what they say to me is just educate. I talk to Roger once a month. He's like, just educate them. I want to make them the best advisors possible. And the reason I'm telling you that is because if you stick with Holistiplan, if you come to the monthly webinars, we are going to teach you between my training, between the team's training and everything they're doing, we're going to teach you how to do this in the best way possible and to give you that confidence. Does that help a little bit? Oh, thank you.
And another is keyword is compliance. Now, so much so the evolution is happening.
Yes.
The American College is rolling out a designation just for this.
That's right.
So I want to be very encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Do not let history hold you back, is what I would tell you. Okay. Yes.
So I have never used the Holistiplan, but I was just curious on more specific tax planning strategies. What do you guys use in the tool, or how do you guys, I guess, illustrate like donor advised funds and things like that?
So here's what I would tell you is that there are a number of breakouts over the next 2 days, and I have 3 of my team members here, and also some of the Holistiplan folks are here teaching these breakouts. And so if you've never used Holistiplan, I'd encourage you, everyone, to go to the breakouts. There's several each day in the afternoon because they're going to be live demoing those features. Okay, and so I would tell you that's the best way to do it. Okay, good. All right, 1 or 2 other questions because I think they need to kick me off the stage. Yes.
You kind of brushed on this earlier, but the whole concept of, non-qualified assets, you want to have more growth-oriented investments, your 401k, you probably want to have more dividend-paying investments, a little slower growth, and then the Roth IRA has more aggressive investments, right? I understand that conceptually. My question is, how can you possibly scale that?
That's great. I mean, I'm just trying to think. I don't know if the technology is there to scale really asset location is sort of what you're getting at, okay? But I will tell you the work that's being done in my office, and I have Dominique here. Oh, she was here, but she left. Dominique was in the back of the room. She had to take a meeting. We are doing incredible work at my office with AI. We're leveraging Zox, and our RIA is also starting to build out some of this AI. I wouldn't be surprised if 6 months to a year from now, we have a way to be evaluating that through Riskalyze, Zox, or some combination of these programs. So right now, though, then to more directly answer your question, is oh, look, you guys got it up here. You saw me trying to do that for you guys, right? He only had one hand, right? And so my team is probably a little bit bigger than it, quote, needed to be because some of this work is not scalable yet, okay? And here's how I made peace with that, is we're closing larger clients, we are getting the wallet share, and part of how we're able to do that is because we are able to roll up our sleeves and do some of that analysis. And so traditionally then it has not been scalable, but more and more, every time I turn around, I get a weekly report on AI and new technology. And every time I turn around, there are things that we were doing manually that we will no longer need to do manually. So there's hope. Does that help a little bit? I know. Look, let's be clear as we wrap up. I mean, some of this work is what I call yeoman's work. That's what makes it so valuable. If it was easy to do, if it was scalable, right, then everybody would be doing it. And we wouldn't be so special. And we wouldn't be able to charge the fees that we charge. And we wouldn't be able to steal wallet share from our competition. So there is a little bit more of effort that's got to go into it. But I will tell you that the ROI is significant. I've never doubted for a second that it was worth the investment. All right, one more question, and then they got to kick me off. No more questions? You guys
Debbie,
got
I
it?
had a question for you.
Who's-
I'm in the
who's-
back, way in the back.
Hey, yeah.
Is there an easy tool inside of Holistiplan to know how much capital gain harvesting I could do for a client?
Is that a trick question or no?
Kind of, there is.
Do you
The-
have the answer and you want to tell us the answer?
Yeah, the range calc tool can allow you inside scenario analysis to look
That's right.
and see like how much capital gains you could realize and still stay in that 0% bucket. So
Yeah.
you can just look at it with a click of a button.
Right. Yes. I wasn't thinking like that yet. I was more focused on asset location. I was like, wait a second, did I miss that? Yeah. And so, so the range calc is great, solve for max, right? So there are all those types of tools. Yes. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. That was a trick question, so I'm not going to count it. All right. One other question that I can actually answer. Yes.
Sometimes I struggle getting
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, how do you get tax returns from clients who are not trained to provide tax returns? Does anybody have that issue? Is that an issue for some of you? Okay. So look, we had to go through that too, right? I mean, 4 years ago when we first started using Holistiplan, our clients weren't trained to give us tax returns every single year. And so basically what we did is we started a campaign around it. So yes, we have 30 outreaches, our weekly newsletter, separate announcements that we send asking for the tax return. But on top of that, we felt like we needed to educate the clients as to why it's important to give us the tax returns. So then we created the 12-point checklist of all the things that we review when you give us a tax return. And we started then educating our clients as to the benefits of giving us the tax return. So you're right. You can't wake up one day and just snap your fingers and be like, hey, everybody, go through the headache of uploading a tax return into a vault just because I say so, and you've seen no value from this, okay? You've got to send the outreach. You've got to educate them. You've got to talk to them about it in the meetings, talk about it in your webinars, send them emails or announcements or promo pieces explaining the value that you can't do Roth conversion work. You can't do tax planning work that could save them millions of dollars unless they give you the tax return. And so you've got to educate them. And here's what I would tell you. Once somebody gets you the tax return once, and then they get the tax report, okay? They get your cover letter, if you include a cover letter. You then send them your Roth conversion recommendations, right? Once they go through almost like your drive-through process and they see all the things they get, after that, you will never have an issue getting their tax return because they see all the value that it comes from. So it's really just that first time. And after that, it's not an issue. Okay, but it's an education and training thing. Good. All right, with that, you folks have been amazing. Have a wonderful conference, and thank you for being such a great crowd.
Thank you, Debbie. Debbie's a rock star. She's absolutely a rock star. So I have two things I want to tell you. So the first one is everything that Debbie mentioned. No, you can go. Thank you, Debbie. So the 2025 IRS tax brackets and inflation adjustments will be live in Holistiplan by the end of the week. Thank you, tax team. We have a whole tax team here at Holistiplan. And then the next piece is we're going to take a quick break. So it's going to be a quick 10-minute break. When you come back, we have a great rest of the program. We're going to do a fireside chat, and then we are going to unveil the very first glimpse of our estate tool, which you'll be the first ones to see. So should be pretty good. All right, take a break. We have snacks outside. We'll see you in 10.
All right, everyone, if you guys want to file back in, I'm glad you were able to stretch, hopefully get some more coffee. I just want to say another thank you so much for Debbie for hosting us. Isn't she fabulous? I know I've seen her many times live, but she's absolutely amazing. So I'm Tori Hoppy, head of partnerships here at Holistiplan. I get the distinct pleasure of hosting the next kind of session here. So we're going to talk about your marketing, how do you brand yourselves, all of that great stuff. I get to be joined by two of my favorite people in the industry, Samantha Russell, Chief Evangelist at FMG, and Nick Harding, the SVP of Customer Success at Nitrogen. So they're going to make their way up here. They should not give me two things. I will be hitting these all day long. So we are today going to talk about leveraging your tech stack for a better client experience. We all know that technology is kind of important. We know that you guys are struggling trying to figure out how and when and what to use. So I'm about to make your eyes bleed over, I'm sure. Who has seen this map? Everyone knows the Kitsy's map? So this is the most current October of 2024. I couldn't even fit the entire map on
There
this
will be
slide.
a test later,
Yes.
so pay really close attention.
As many logos as you guys can actually read on this, I would like to know. But actually, I couldn't actually fit the entire map on the screen. Like that's how big it has grown. In 2018, when he originally started putting these maps out there, there was maybe 1, 2, 3 categories, and now there's categories for categories upon categories. I think all 3 of our companies sit somewhere on this map. Yep. Could I tell you where ours is? Absolutely not, because it moves every month, quarter when they put these out. But again, we understand you the advisors are treading in deep, deep water and trying to figure out what technology is going to work best for you. How do you market that you are using this technology? We know that the younger generations, the younger investors are looking for technology in their investments, right? Like we've got all sorts of different styles here. So I always love to kind of kick this off, make your eyes bleed a little bit, and then we'll bring you guys back to reality. So the first question I have for the team here is, what's the best way for advisors to start building their tech stacks? I'll kick it to Sam first, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so
you know, I look at that map and I'm in marketing, I'm not in a financial advisor and I'm not, you know, a technology guru by any means. And I always think, I like to tell a story. When we first were starting, my husband and I, a company 20 over 10 that we then sold to FMG, which is where I now work, have the pleasure of working. I remember looking at CRMs when we were first starting the company, and I had always heard great things about Salesforce. And I do think Salesforce is an amazing CRM, but I was a small team of just one person and I tried to set it up for us. And I paid all this money for it. And I basically never used it and ended up using an Excel spreadsheet that whole first year because I didn't have the time to learn it, to figure it out, to set it up. And so my advice when I'm thinking about how do I get started with anything is what will you actually use in the beginning? Like that's my kind of baseline. Like what do I have the time to use and what features do I know that are going to give me the most bang for my buck? And part of that was my own fault. I could have gotten some training and like learned it. But I do think people sometimes, you know, if they want to start recording videos, they go build a whole recording studio instead of realizing the power of the iPhone in their pocket, for instance. So I say, you know, think about what do you really absolutely need as your, you know, baseline when you're getting started. And I know you might have some thoughts about that, Nick.
Yeah. So before I go, a lot of folks in this room, who here just wishes that these technology whippersnappers would get their act together and create the seamless technology stack that all of you have, right? Where's the hands, right? Okay, here's the thing. I've been in technology for over a decade. I had hair when I started. It's probably not going to happen. I know that it's demoralizing. It feels disappointing, but here's why. Who here's ever bought a house? You probably have looked at a model house. Maybe you looked at deciding to go the custom route. Technology is very similar to that, right? You want to go buy the model off the shelf software, you can do that, but there's about 80% of it solves your needs exactly the way you want or pretty close. And there's about 20% that you're like, I wish that granite was a little bit different color. But that's what came with the house versus a complete custom side is one that you build from scratch. You make all the decisions on the everything, right? And you get to maintain all of those little decisions and you get the decision fatigue of a 2-year-long project that was only supposed to take 6 months. I digress. So what I'm saying is that use the 80-20 rule with your technology, right? Start iteratively. I love what Sam said, and recognize that you're going to leverage this technology for about 80% of what you think it should do exactly the way you should do it. And then plan to spend about 20% adjusting your workflows to fit, whatever software solution you're looking for to fit the needs that you're looking for. It's iterative, right? So recognize that it's not going to be there right out of the gate. I feel your pain. We just switched over to do a huge Salesforce migration, which is a big undertaking. It takes us months to do that. And Salesforce is really robust and it doesn't do everything exactly the same way as the old one, which means my team has to make adjustments and it's a little frustrating, but we're going to iterate forward to make it better moving forward.
And I think it's important too that you guys bring up the CRM because I truly feel, and I say this a lot, that your CRM is your foundation. That is how you're going to build your book of business,
Your
right?
source of truth.
Your source of truth. That is your data, right? We all hear the word data thrown around a lot in our industry. Data rules the roost, right? So we understand like your CRM is going to be your foundation, but what do you do after that? And I like to always pull this up because this is the difference between the services expected versus the services received by your clients. So you can see those top 3 items of the services expected and what they're actually receiving. So if you're trying to decide what technology you want to start building at, this would kind of be a good spot, right? Talk to your clients, figure out what they're really looking for, and then you can start building out those more tactical tools like the Nitrogens, like the FMGs of the world and Holistaplans to build out that tech stack that's going to work for you and your business. And I think you guys have a lot to say in this. Not one technology stack is going to look the same for every advisor, right? Not everyone's tech stacks are in this room is going to look the same.
Yeah, I always look at this chart and it makes me laugh because I think one of the things I think of is clients expect a lot from their advisor. And, part of it is education. They don't necessarily know what an advisor does versus another financial professional. And so there is a really big opportunity because so few people are getting so many of these services that if you are offering, for instance, tax services and uploading their tax returns and offering such great guidance. That is such a thing that you can be marketing because they're not getting it other places. So not only is it a great way to think about what technology you're going to utilize, but then what marketing opportunities does it enable you to do? I always get asked, what's the marketing tactic we should use? Like, should we be on YouTube? Should we create a TikTok video? And I say instead, you should think about what about your business is marketable, because though that's the main question to ask. And that is really where you want to lean in and focus your marketing efforts.
Yeah. I would also recommend contact the companies that you want to work with. Like I know that for our website, nitrogenwealth.com, we have something called a tech stack builder. You can email our team at support@nitrogenwealth.com and we'd be happy to send that out to you. It's a free tool. You can access it online. And it basically says, here's all of the tech integrations we have and how they work together. Because again, ideally, if we were to sample this room, maybe way less than 3% of you would have the exact same tech stack. So building it on our side may not work as well, but you can get a good sense of how those integrations work together, whether it's Holistiplan and Nitrogen and FMG and Nitrogen, whatever that looks like. And I think the other piece that I would want to bring up is just remember, again, we talked about that it's iterative and I think we covered it.
Yeah. I would love to know, is there anyone, raise your hand here, who uses FMG, Holistiplan, and Nitrogen, all three tools? Got a handful? Okay.
Great.
All stars.
Yeah.
We will send you all swag later.
Yeah.
'cause we love that about that.
We do.
But yeah, like Nick said, it's interesting. Again, there's no right answer when you're picking your technology. And I think, again, we as tech companies probably make that a little complicated for you all. I will be the first to say that the tech world is very complicated. Everyone is asking for your dollars. And it's hard for you guys to differentiate, what should I use? How do I put this into my book of business? Is this the right fit for me? So how do you guys feel like they should be making decisions around their technology? Over to you.
I recommend starting with a brainstorming session. I know that that's probably not what you were expecting from the tech guy. Take a whiteboard, some sticky notes, and figure out how does your client experience mix with your tech stack? Kind of a lot of what Sam was talking about a little bit earlier. Figure out what does it look like? Where are there gaps? Using this as an example, like where are there gaps? Where do you want to go in the future? And remember that technology should be an investment over the next couple of years. So if you're just looking over the next 6 months for a piece of technology, you got to expand that horizon to be, again, probably closer to like 3 to 5 years, because you want that investment to pay off. And as you're engaging in that investment, I will say that on the tech side, feel free to send all of your tech providers ideas of how to prioritize. We call them product ideas. So if you're like, hey, you're missing X, or it would be great if you included Y, send that out to our teams. I know that our team specifically, I think I speak for everybody here, like we want to hear that feedback. Again, it's not a one size fits all. We're going to accomplish everything you send us, but it gives our product teams a great idea of what the needs are as we try and listen to what you're wanting to do, as well as now and into the future.
And I would just say from a marketing perspective, most of the things on the map there are specific to they're all specific to our industry. But for marketing, I know so many firms will use people often that are not necessarily based in financial services. And we've sadly had horror stories of people coming to us saying, I hired this firm and then they wrote the copy on my website and they, used words that are not compliant and they got flagged and we had to take it down, or they helped me make a video and it didn't end up getting approved, or they're now with the SEC marketing rule, they were incorporating testimonials or Google reviews and, not again, being compliant with the way they do it. So for marketing, especially, you really want to make sure that who you choose understands the industry, or at the very least, you have somebody that's checking it to make sure if you are hiring someone outside the industry, that somebody internally knows what those rules are and can make sure you're being compliant, because that is not something you want to mess with.
Compliance is always such a bad word. My husband works in compliance, so I feel like I'd make a joke about it. But yeah, everything for him is very black and white because he is compliance. And I'm always like, there's a lot of shades of gray. I think we can work through this, but it kind of leads us into our next question. How do you guys see a successful advisor getting the word out that they use these tactical tools like the ones that we are part of to drive their businesses. So I can start with Sam.
Yes, and I think I pulled up some different examples we can kind of talk through. So I think examples, the power of a visual. This is one advisor who has an FMG website and he uses Holistiplan. And I love that what he did was he created a quick 2-minute video and I love that he says, we're very excited to introduce a new service. While we cannot provide tax advice, we've partnered with Holistiplan that will better help us analyze tax returns and generate a concise deliverable so that we can be more proactive on your behalf, that proactive word. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see basically what he did was he takes the tools that Holistiplan gives you, like the preview copy of the tax return, and he has a 2-minute Loom video. If you've never heard of Loom, Loom, you can also use Veed, VEED.io, and it'll allow you to record your screen and your camera. And he just explains the power of this tax analysis tool and why it's so proactive and, enables him to do better work for his clients. So something like this, yes, you can put on your website. Then you can have, an email campaign where you email both prospects and or clients talking about the power of proactive tax planning and, having insight into their tax return and what it allows you, enables you to be able to do. You can share videos like this on social media because again, it's not a real client example you're using. So I think a big part of it is just being willing to talk about it and then using some of the resources that the vendor that you've chosen has given you. And I think I have more examples here. Yeah. So this is, again, if you're using nitrogen and the risk number, this is an example from Sunwise Wealth Advisors. And they have this, again, they've used the great marketing tools that Nitrogen has given them to allow anybody to just scan the QR code to find out their risk number. They have a screenshot of what it would look like on the back end. It talks about, does this cost us anything if I'm not yet a client? And then if you go to the next slide, it even, as you scroll down that page, explains what the different risk numbers might look like. So this is just a page on their website that we at FMG helped them build using the tools that Nitrogen provided. It was the same thing kind of with Holistiplan. So I think your website is a great place to start because then you can drive people back to it with email campaigns, social posts, all the other kinds of marketing. But the website will be the place that it lives. Go ahead.
I think to add to that, what I would recommend is making sure that you just leverage as much of the technology and white label as much of it as you can. So what we try to do on our side, it's been kind of a little bit of a shift over the years. Who here remembers when we were Riskalyze versus Nitrogen? Yeah, it's okay if you call us Riskalyze. I promise there's no Riskalyze police that'll come get you. Listen, you can use Riskalyze. You can say we use Riskalyze. We recommend, kind of adjusting the talk track to say we leverage things like the risk number and the GPA to help us communicate risk and communicate the risk adjusted returns. And you can actually go to our website at the very bottom, go to nitrogenwealth.com at the bottom, click design. We have a bunch of design assets that you can use, our logos, the risk number, all of the, we call them the speed limit signs that kind of fit that's what this group did here as well, that fit your narrative. We have a client-facing video on our marketing kit. There's a lot of different aspects. And at the end of the day, the reason we've chosen to do it that way is that we want to tell your story. We don't feel like it's your job to tell our story. So what we're trying to do is empower you with all of these assets so that you can tell your story to clients in a lot of these creative ways that Sam pointed out, using everything that we've built. You just can't take credit for like the risk number. That's, that's AK. But you can use all of those assets and all of those design things to help bolster your narrative.
And what I love about these examples too, is that not only are you showing that you can white label them, but it's also like highlighting the technology that you've brought into your business. So again, you're highlighting that you are listening to your clients. These are the topics that they have at the top of their minds when they're looking for an advisor or, are important to them. And they're showcasing it right on their website that I'm using technology that's going to help me better your financial needs. And so I love that these examples show not only like the white labeling piece of like the Nitrogen piece, but like we know that tax planning makes advisors and clients kind of nervous, right? Because we don't love talking about taxes. So being able to say, hey, look, like I've partnered with a technology that helps me better that conversation with you, and this is how we use it. That's what I think is really important here is that, you know, again, the advisors are leveraging their technology to market themselves, that they are using technology. We know a lot of younger investors, I think we all sit pretty much in the same millennial generation. We want technology. Like, we all love our phones. We want to be able to communicate via our phones and that kind of thing. So being able to see like our advisors are embracing technology. I'm going to be more inclined to work with you if you were my parents' advisor, because I see that you are trying to now get on the same page as where we want to be when we invest, right? The big wealth transfer is happening. We know that. So how are you setting yourself up for success for that wealth transfer? And a lot of it's going to be the technology that you choose as you're moving forward.
The only other thing I would say is we have a lot of people that use FMG and they'll come to us and say, I use Holistiplan or I use Nitrogen. Can you just put their logo on my website? That is not going to mean anything to the client. The client does not know Holistiplan or Nitrogen. So you need these examples show, right, the language we want to use. And that's why it's so great that you have that, you know, design assets that people can just use to tell the story. You always want to be thinking from the client's perspective, what's in it for them? Like, what are they getting out of this tool? So making it really clear to draw a line between this technology allows us to do X for you. That's the story that you want to tell, not just we use this technology, because the client doesn't know, you know, they're not in our world. They don't know these, they probably don't know these companies.
Yeah, and I love how Nick pointed out, like, Nitrogen makes it so easy for advisors to white label, and they make it really easy for you to bring that technology to the people in your book of business, right? They have marketing kits that you can download to use. They've got all these items for you to get in front of your client with the risk score, right? So again, really easy to understand how your risk number is. I know when I first started in this industry and people are like, oh, are you want to go into a moderate portfolio? Well, what does that mean? And it's just listed as A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want it D, like D sound bad, right? But like I wanted A, but like is aggressive too aggressive when you're 22 and trying to figure out what this is? So like I love how Nitrogen makes it really simple for you to have that conversation about risk, right? So being able to like bring that down to the level that your clients are, that's what the technology is there to do. It's supposed to enhance their experience with your office.
Oh, and I just had pulled these in here to highlight that from a marketing perspective, we at FMG have partnered with both Holistiplan and Nitrogen. If you are using FMG, to make it really easy for you to market that you are using these services. So this is just an example of an email sequence we have in the FMG dashboard. If you search the word Nitrogen, and you can send it to clients and or prospects, and it basically invites them to do the little assessment to get their risk number. Maybe you've already done that in the office with clients, but maybe you have a list of prospects that you're trying to engage. That is an email campaign you can send to that list of prospects. Or maybe it's the children of your current clients and you just had a family meeting with them talking about the plan, the estate plan. And so you're thinking, you know, as we start to work with you now, this next generation, what is your tolerance for risk and your time horizon? So this is a great email sequence that's already in there for you to use. And then we actually have one with Holistiplan as well. If you're an FMG customer, helping you ask for those tax returns. So I know Debbie was just up here giving some ideas, but there's great emails in the dashboard that allow you to just, you know, you can deploy it, it's already written, or you can edit it, but we've written it in a way to talk about how getting that tax return can make the advisor so much more proactive in their approach, the benefits to the client, and it's already pre-written for you, so you can just deploy it right from your dashboard.
Go ahead.
If you wanted help writing things, because maybe you're not as cool as Samantha. And on nitrogenwealth.com, if you do nitrogenwealth.com/AI, you can have access to our AI tool that gives you the ability to write, blog posts, social media, whatever you want to kind of help spur that on. I know AI is kind of an up and coming thing. Maybe not, it's been around for a while, right? But we use it a lot, both with our AI tool as well as regular AI, because it just helps get past all of that writer's block. Who has ever had writer's block? Half the room is not raising their hand, but that's fine. Listen, it just kind of helps you move forward and get some ideas to put on paper as you craft your story. And I think that's the other thing I wanted to highlight is that these tools are great, but it's got to match within your story, right? Because that's the differentiator between all of you in this room is you all have a story. You all have a story of why you got into this industry, why you're doing what you're doing. And that's that power of the story that you want to give to clients in addition to the tech stack.
And I also think it's really important for us to highlight that we, as technology companies, don't want to bog you down, right? We are wanting to build you for speed and efficiency. So being able to use tools that have already pre-made that email campaign for you allows you to set them and forget it, right? Like you can set this email to go out on Tuesday at 9 a.m. You can set that like a month in advance, right? So you can have someone in your office coordinate all of these emails to go out for you. And we've already have the template created. So you don't have to think about it, right? You guys have already so much on your plates. You don't want to also think about getting an email campaign out to your clients, right? Like it's too much. And so like, that's why I think using technology and using the tools that we have helps you build for success for the marketing piece. Cause I think again, everyone's trying to figure out how do we market, right? So it leads me into the next question. What's the best way for advisors to balance personal identity and their core business message?
You got this, Sam.
So, I think that I've been helping advisors with marketing for a decade. And over this last decade, more and more we've moved from on the investment management side, especially where when I first started, I still had people talking about their specific investment approach and why that made them different. Nobody comes to me and tells me to highlight that anymore in their marketing whatsoever. I mean, I think that we've seen such a commoditization in so many ways of certain types of services that used to be differentiators. Even people coming and saying, I'm a fiduciary, that was something people would highlight big time 10 years ago, not so much anymore. And so when you think about, well, what is it that makes me different? I know Bank of New York, Mellon, they did a study a few years ago and they found that over 60% of investors think that most financial advisors offer the same thing, and it makes it really hard to tell the difference between them. And so that's when we come back to story. Why are you here? Why do you work with the kind of clients that you work with? Why are you passionate about it? And passion just shines through. When somebody's excited about what they're talking to you about, the other person can tell. And that obviously filters down to having a niche. But maybe your company is larger and you have multiple advisors on staff and, Joe over here works with a certain kind of client and Cindy works with a certain kind of client. But as a firm, you work with a lot of different clients. It is so important to let the individuals within your team talk. Maybe it's on social media on their own, personal LinkedIn pages. Maybe it's they each write their own articles or blogs or, have their separate email lists, but talk about why they're passionate with working with the particular types of clients that they are, because that is what, people will remember. People do business with people. They're choosing your firm because of the people, not necessarily because of a certain fund you invest with 99.9% of the time. So I think starting by taking stock of who do you really, really enjoy working with, every single person on the team, and where does that audience hang out? Where do they go? This is one of the reasons I'm so bullish on video. If you look at how much time Americans spend watching video, everybody watches YouTube from, someone who's 95 to 5. Everybody watches video. So video can be such a great tool for everyone, but not everybody needs to be on every single platform. So taking stock really of where does your particular audience hang out is a really good place to start. I can say more, but give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of those things like don't try to boil the ocean. And I think this is where advisors really start to boil the ocean. And they think I need to be on TikTok and I need to be on Instagram and I need to be Facebook and I need to do this, that, and the other thing. You're going to burn out and you're not going to do it all really, really great. So I always suggest, pick one platform and crush it. And then if you have the bandwidth to add another, do that, but don't try to do all of them at once.
I talked to our head of marketing in preparation for this, and I said, hey, what are some of the key pieces of advice that you would have for everybody? And the first thing he said was make sure that you have these two as your moderators. I was like, check, got it. The other one he said was, just like Tori was saying, start small, be consistent. Those are the two main things, right? Because if you're going to boil the ocean, you won't be consistent. And that consistency is what makes or breaks most, if not all, marketing cadences and marketing campaigns. Because if you're not consistent in the small things, whether it's a blog or social media or video, and it doesn't have to be every day, but you need to be consistent and plan for it to last or take at least 6 months. So you got to be in it for the long haul, plan that into your schedule. And I think the other thing I would just mention is remember that for most advisors, it's not the money that actually keeps you from marketing. It's the time, which I thought is really interesting, right? Because you all are like, sure, we got to put marketing dollars into it, but it's the time. And we know that the time and the money correlate to how your business is going to grow. So just keep those things in mind.
It's so interesting you say that, because for the last 10 years, I've been getting on stage or creating, going and giving workshops. And I would tell people, here's all the steps you need to do. If I was launching a financial services business tomorrow as an advisor, here's exactly what I would do. And at the end of every session, people would come up to me and say, well, can you just do it for me? Like every single time. So we at FMG actually launched a program called Do It For Me. That is the name of the program. And we will do the marketing for you beyond just the technology. But you're right. It's not just the money, it's the time. And so, if I'll ask rooms all the time, how many of you know what emails you're sending to your clients and prospects from a campaign, not like a, hey, we need to check in, but educational content this week, next week, a month from now? Most people don't raise their hand because they haven't thought about it. And when it's not something you have a plan for, it falls by the wayside. So, making sure that if you can't do it yourself, being willing to outsource it. I know YCharts did a study recently. They've done it for 3 years, and every year, the number one reason a client says that they have left their advisor or considering leaving is from lack of communication. That is number one reason. And so something as simple as having a weekly email where you drop educational content. Hey, this is what just happened with legislation on this, or, hey, the FAFSA student loan deadline is coming up. If, anyone in your family is thinking about it, here's what to know, can go such a long way. And being proactive, just like raising your hand saying, I'm here, I'm thinking about you, I'm reading these things, and I'm on top of it.
Yeah. And I think too, when we think about marketing, you guys probably think, oh, it's all video, it's all, video. But the reality is, if you communicate better with your clients via a newsletter and email, your clients are going to feel seen, right? They're getting that touch point from you, and they're getting it in a manner that they are expecting it, right? So don't feel like it has to be video. A video is it's become very easy with the iPhones and the Looms of the world, but don't feel like video is the be all.
Some people hate being on video.
Yes. I'm one of those people, and yet here I am on this stage. So I know, oxymoron, but I know we have a couple slides in here.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Has anybody ever been to Bob Ricard in London, or anyone heard of it? So this is a restaurant. If you've ever heard of the big marketing firm Ogilvy, famous for running amazing campaigns, one of the creative directors left Ogilvy and he wanted to start a restaurant. It was like his dream. And so he came up with this idea for this restaurant, Bob Ricard. It's in London. And he wanted to sell a really high volume of champagne because the profit margin's so big. But he thought most people on a Monday or a Tuesday night don't go to a restaurant, at least most people, maybe you do, Nick, and order a bottle of champagne. So he thought, how can I maybe gamify it or make people want to buy more? And so it was right around the time when Amazon had the really quick buy button came out on their app. And so he installed these press for champagne buttons at every table in the restaurant. And, you don't really think about, when you go out to eat, all the decisions you have to make to finally or choose your drink, right? You have to flag down the waiter, you have to look at the menu, maybe think about the price, all these different things. You just press that champagne button and champagne magically appears. And it became such a fun thing. People started taking photos of it, posting them to social media. People wanted to go there just because it was novel and unique. It became a remarkable moment, right? But it also removed the friction of making the choice. And so I think there's 2 lessons here for all of us. One, where are the bottlenecks in your business that create friction, that just make it hard for someone to do what you want them to do? Whether you want them to give you the tax return, maybe they don't know that you're using Holistiplan, or maybe they don't know where to put the tax return. Whatever it might be. If you're trying to get new clients, do you just have a form on your website where they have to fill out their name, write you a little message, or do you just have Calendly where they can just choose a time and they know exactly what they're going to get? So 1, remove friction, but 2, how can you create these remarkable moments, right? A remarkable moment is literally a moment that's so good, somebody feels compelled to make a remark about it to other people. how can you create those moments that, really serve to help you stand out and differentiate from everyone else? And there's a million ideas of stories. I've heard advisors do different things, but I just love this press for champagne button because it's so simple, yet it's so remarkable.
I think I would add to that. I think what you're talking about in the software world, we call that the customer journey, right? So it's what is the customer journey before everyone is signed up? We call that pre-sale, right? What is the thought leadership you're putting out there to help get people on your website interested in what you do, starting to tell your story when they've signed that ACAT and are in your system? How do you keep them engaged? Maybe it's using things within Nitrogen like check-ins or the risk questionnaire, whatever it is you're doing through the whole item there and through the whole journey. And what I love about what you said is create those remarkable moments, not just before their clients, but also after, right? Because a lot of folks, you're only talking to these clients maybe twice a year, and you're going to need a little bit more because it's a noisy world out there. Who here feels that, right? Everyone's MySpace page is blowing up right now. You don't even recognize it. So you got to make sure that you're adding in.
It's a good thing you're not in marketing. I'm just kidding. MySpace.
You got to be adding in that thought leadership and those points of contact to help make sure that you are top of mind. I'll give you a great personal story. I had a friend who was in a bad accident, got a lump sum of money, right? He's like, I got to figure out what to do with this. This is early 2000s, right as that bubble is crashing. Everybody remember that if you're my age? Okay. Other than that, he's like, well, I got to figure out what to do. He goes to his financial advisor that his dad knew. And the financial advisor literally thought, look, I know this person's father. I've known him for 10, 15 years at that point in time. The pitch was like 5 minutes. And the pitch was basically, as the market was going down, the individual said, hey, how do I keep from my portfolio from going down? And the answer was, oh, you can't. You just got to accept those losses. You want to sign up? That was the pitch. Who here thinks that he signed up? He did not, right? So not only was it like, it was disconcerting for the individual, it also cost this other individual the opportunity to build a legacy at a very young age for this person. And it didn't create that customer journey, didn't create the warm and fuzzies, folks, to help create that ACAT moment and sign up or the relationship. And I think it's kind of like a digital relationship.
Yep.
He needed to push the champagne button after
Yeah.
that meeting.
You needed that, absolutely.
I would really like to just install that button everywhere.
In your
again.
hou- in your
Like
home.
everywhere. I don't know. It's just me.
And so the reason I put this example here, does anybody have Google reviews for their business yet? Raise them high, because I'm actually really curious. Okay, this side of the room, way more than this side of the room. Got a couple people over there. So when we think about those moments, everybody forever has wanted to grow or has grown through referrals. But I always say, a referral is a one-to-one. The way that businesses are really growing now is through digital referrals, which is a 1 to hundreds or 1 to thousands. So if you create a really remarkable moment that someone wants to talk about, they're much more inclined to today, not just tell a friend, but to post about it. And if you can have somebody talk about that kind of remarkable moment that you've created for them on social media or in a Google review, now it's not just their friend that they told in person that gets to hear that story, but every single person who Googles your business and sees it, come up is going to also hear that referral or that review. So this is something that I know is still very much the Wild West for a lot of firms with the SEC marketing rule, but we're going to see more and more of it. And these reviews and testimonials are just going to become part and parcel for the way that clients decide who they want to work with. And so having those, again, remarkable moments that allow them to think, this was so good, I need to talk about it, I think will become even more important.
Yeah, and I think too, again, I talk about like generational passing and how different generations are going to interact with your businesses. It's going to be more and more online, right? Like we're all going to be more inclined to look things up. I mean, I remember having to print out MapQuest. I don't know. If you
I
guys-
do,
so-
yes.
But like no one's printing out anything anymore, right? Where it's all right on our phones. I can see all of you on your phones and you're looking things up and you're, doing many things at once, right? Like everything is going to be digital here soon, if it's not already. So like the testimonials I think are going to come, it's going to be pretty key when you're trying to build out like your voice for your business. So like Sam said, I think it's still a Wild West out there on these ones. But I'm sure we'll see some changes to it soon, but just know kind of the back of your head, like we probably need to implement it sooner rather than later.
Would say the only other thing to consider is that as we were preparing, and the reason we chose these topics, who here really wanted to get into business because you loved technology and you just wanted to dive into technology, or you loved marketing? That financial stuff was kind of fun. No, like you got into this because you loved the finance part, right? You loved the numbers, you loved the investments. And so one of the reasons we want to bring this to you is that we have some expertise here. And I actually had a conversation with my dad. He's in his 70s. He's owned his own business, not a financial advising business, but he's been a chiropractor for almost 50 years now. So way to go him. And I was telling him that I was going to do this talk. And I said, what would you tell a room full of hundreds of or thousands of people about marketing? Because when he joined to be a doctor, he did not train in all of that education to market and to leverage technology. It was all about, the physical, technical aspects of the job that he was doing. And he said, well, I would do this because he was not a natural marketer when he started. So I don't know if that recommends anybody in the room, if anybody feels that way as well. He said, here's the problem. When I got started, I felt like I was the best kept secret in town. But what good was it if nobody knew about it, right? So that was what I would encourage all of you. You've got to get that voice out there. And one of the myriad of ways that we've mentioned here and recommend and mention that if you feel like you're that best kept secret because you can add value, you can do this thing that no one else does it the way that you do, get your voice out there and, see what happens.
I love that. So we talked a little bit in your question about how do you show your personality? And I think that we are really starting to see more and more firms embracing, their differences and their personality and not feeling like they need to be so buttoned up, even looking in the room, right? How everybody's dressed today versus at a conference 10 years ago, we might all be in suits 100%. And now you see much more variation in what people feel comfortable wearing. We're really starting to see on the marketing side, people embracing showing their personality. So I love this example from Cadence Wealth Partners, Sean Williams, when we were helping him at FMG with his website. I mean, if you look at his bio, you can see the Cliff Notes bio for each person. And then it will take you to like the full bio page. But for his Cliff Notes bio, super dad, bald, Marine, moderately intelligent, plays banjo, builds tree houses, hates closed-toed shoes, right? It just makes you laugh. And you think about how many people are going to meet you online because somebody mentioned your firm and they go and look you up versus will ever have the chance to meet you in person. And what do you want that first impression to be? Do you want them to walk away feeling kind of warm and fuzzy, like, you know what, I'm going to sit down with this person and we're going to have to talk about taxes and finances and all these emotional things tied to money, but at least we'll be able to laugh. And at least I know I'll walk away feeling like it was a good meeting and I didn't detest every moment spent with that person. And you could see he moves on to this. If you click on his full bio, he has like his skills, then the professional version. And what I really love is I really encourage people to write their bios if they can to include first person language. Most of you probably have your bio written in third person. So Samantha Russell went to school here and she did this and then did this. It sounds like I'm dead. It's my obituary instead of me telling my story. But it can be difficult to figure out how do I write in first person. So make it look like a magazine article. One of the things we're seeing people do is the question will be in bold, like, why did you get into financial planning? And then the advisor's answer below it is just in regular font, not bolded. And it's their answer in first person. And then maybe what kinds of clients do you really enjoy working with? And then they're able to use that I language. So that's a really great way to write your bio that allows you to tell your story, but it doesn't come across kind of awkward to write it in first person.
I have a question for Sam with this, because some of the pushback we've gotten from some of the folks over the years is, gosh, I don't want to polarize myself online. How do I keep myself from turning people off while leveraging that personal style?
It's a great question. My answer immediately is to think of a magnet. So if you want to be a magnet and attract people, every magnet has two sides, one side that attracts and one side that repels. You will not attract anyone if you don't repel anyone. It just won't work. So that would be my answer.
So I have to be okay with people not liking my dad jokes. Got it?
Yes.
Okay. Understood.
And I think too, it's important that you want to work with people that align with you, right? It does not make work fun if you're working with people that you don't like. Like I'll be honest, I like everyone I work with. There's a reason for that, right? It's same for you. Your clients are working with you because you have similar interests. And so it makes that time spent with them enjoyable. We all want to enjoy our jobs. We want to enjoy our life. We spend 1/3 of our day in office. Why be miserable? why work with people that you don't love to work with, right? So being able to show who your true self is, I think is really important. And I love that that's where our business is headed. Because we really get to see the incredible people that make up this industry, right? We all are very different and unique. And I think that's really great to be able to let that shine. So we all don't have to be this buttoned up suit type folks. I know we make fun of those people, and I'm so sorry if anyone is wearing a Patagonia vest in here.
Feel
We
targeted
love you
here.
all.
But targeted right now.
Yes.
Sorry.
But again, we all get to kind of be our own folks, right? So it's nice that we can now show that on our websites and who we work with. All right, so again, thanks for Sam and Nick for joining. We wanted to open up for questions. We know that marketing is always like a big hot topic. So any questions out there for the panel, please raise hands. I'm not sure I can run this out there. Oh, there I can.
Or you could talk loud.
Yes, talk loud. Gonna get my workout in. Not going to the gym today, everyone.
Sam, could you talk a little bit about FMG for those of us that don't know what FMG is or who you are and how this, you said people use Holistiplan, nitrogen, and FMG. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. And we didn't really do big, long introductions. And sometimes that's actually the best way. You get people interested in what you do, and then you tell them about what you do at the end. So FMG is a digital marketing provider specifically for advisors. We work with both RIAs and BDs. And we have on the back end compliance engine. So everything we do on the marketing side gets funneled through compliance. So if you are with a broker dealer, your home office would have somebody on the platform approving everything. If you're with an RIA and you have in-house compliance, there's a separate portal for that. But it's a piece of technology that you would log into. You can have just a website there. You can also use our marketing suite of tools, which includes emails, social media posts, event toolkits. So, more and more advisors are wanting to host events. We create slide decks that you can use. There's video scripts, podcast scripts, depending on kind of the tier that you fall into. And then that Do It For Me program I mentioned takes it one step further, where you're paired with a concierge from our team who meets with you every month. And we create an editorial calendar. So an editorial calendar basically says, this week on Monday, this blog post is going to go out. On Wednesday, this email is going to go out to clients. On Friday, this email is going to go out to prospects. These social posts are going to go. And so we create an editorial calendar for the whole month. And then you would meet with your concierge and they would say, okay, based on what I know about your business, here's the ones we will or won't use. So you're really trying to target small business owners right now. So these are the emails we're going to send. And oh, by the way, we have a special email this month for centers of influence to really try to get the word out about, what you do and how you can partner with them. So it's really just being the backbone of your marketing, but there's two tracks. You can just use the technology and the content and deploy it on your own, or you can be part of that Do It For Me program and have our team actually execute it for you. You're welcome. Yes.
We already use FMG, but do you guys assist, like if we wanted to make an app just for our firm?
That's such a good question. And you seem like you have an
I was just going to say, the question was, can they
Cool.
develop an app within FMG that's kind of custom to the firm?
Thank you for recapping.
I got your back.
What would you want the app to do?
If it could, we're always looking for ways to streamline access to like our client portals. Different ones right now, but also just when you guys were talking about removing friction, and if we just
Yeah.
upload documents and tax returns and submit client data.
Okay. Yeah. So did you know that there's a way you can make any website an app on your phone? You can basically make the website itself like when you open up your phone and you see all your apps on the home screen, you can make your website an app like that. And I've actually shown advisors how to, when the client comes into the office, how to take their phone and help them do it. So then they can just always be reminded visually that your website is right there. That's probably the lowest hanging fruit way to do it. And then within your website, you can add a client vault area. You would need a third-party tool because FMG is not set up to have like the security of uploading the documents, but there's third-party tools that we can embed into your website so that you have a page that's, it says like client vault, and then they can go there. So it would be then a two-step process. They clip the app on your phone, which is really just taking them back to the website, and then we could have it open directly in the client vault. Another question.
Hi, you were recently introduced to our BD about a year or so ago. Coming from the unmitigated disaster known as My Marketing Station to transferring over to you guys or transitioning to you guys has been nothing short of incredible. My experience with FMG, it's almost like drinking out of a fire hose, joyfully refreshing, but massively overwhelming. So I'm taking all these notes and saying, how do I best I didn't even podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, how do I best put all of this to work? So when I pull up my FMG app, I'm like,
Yeah.
is there like a FMG for dummies or start here type of
Yeah.
advice you can share with us?
I think that's such a good question. And I think it relates to all technology. When you first open up that new tool, where do you start? What do you do? There is something that I can alert you to that is every month, our team puts out, if you're using the platform on your own, here are the top pieces that we would recommend that you send via email. Like the most popular that we know will appeal to everyone, right? We don't know if you have a specific niche, but it's like our recommendations for the month. And then I would also just tell you, like, again, we talked about this earlier, start small. Don't feel like you need to go have a podcast right away just because we have the script there. You can eventually get to that once you get some of the other things set up. So maybe you first, just divide your contacts into clients versus prospects. And then maybe under that, even a separate list for business owners. And then you start doing some email campaigns. So starting small and would be the best way to do it. Every month I run a workshop where I highlight something for FMG customers. So you'll start getting invites to those if you haven't already, either myself or my colleague Elise, and they're called Did You Know? And we just talk about a certain aspect of the technology or the platform or our service and kind of do a deep dive to help you utilize it better.
One of the things we recommend advisors that come to us with similar questions, and again, FMG does it fantastic, is go with your strengths. So if you are someone who writes a lot of emails or is really good at written communication, gear towards those. If you're someone who loves speaking, maybe it's a lunch and learn, maybe it's more on the podcast side, maybe it's more on the video side. I think those two kind of go together. Go with whatever I would recommend, go with a communication that's leaning towards your strength. Kind of curious of what your thoughts are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that you, to your point before, that you can be consistent with. I mean, how many podcasts have started and stopped after only 10 episodes, 9 episodes, because they just can't be consistent with it? So yeah, starting with what that you can tackle and that you're going to enjoy. If you hate being on camera, don't start a YouTube series.
Yeah. So sorry, we are running a few minutes behind schedule. So I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate Nick and Sam joining me today. So please give it up for them. And so I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Roger. Okay, making sure. So Roger is our CEO and co-founder. He is going to show off kind of what we've got going on here as a company, our product roadmap. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am for this. I, of course, have had a front row seat for many demos of this. So I'm very excited that you all get to see it. You are the first people to see end to end what we were building on the estate side. So please, Roger, take it away.
Thank you. My mic's okay? Sounds good? Okay. This is the clicker. We're going to do a switcheroo of two computers halfway through. It's going to work perfectly. Yeah, what do you, no, oh yeah, she said put this on the floor and then put mine up on the thing. All right, this is going to work great. It's going to be really great. Yes, we're going to talk about estate, something we've been working on, I'm embarrassed to say, for a number of years. We finally have put some real investment behind it this year, and so we have something that we can present. It's still not quite ready for market, but it's something that I'd love to show to you all, and then maybe outside in the hallways get some feedback on where we're at. First of all, I'd like to do some thank yous, if I may. First of all, thank you to all of you for being here, for supporting us over the years. We're here because of the support you have given us, and that's humbling to me. And I mean that not in a LinkedIn way of saying humbling. You know, I'm humbled to be one of the top 5 advisors in Des Moines. You know, truly humbled to have people put this level of faith in us, this level of trust in us, and it's not something we take lightly. You are counting on us. Your customers are counting. Your clients are counting on us. We promise to work every day to continue to earn it. So thank you. I do want to thank you saw a bunch of my teammates out in the hallway. A lot of my colleagues showed up. Thank you, all of them. 4 people I'd like to call out personally. One is my colleague, Laura, Tracy, Alana, and Tori. They put a ton of work into putting this event together. And I really appreciate the work you've done. You were very stressed for a few days there, but I hope that you take a few moments today to kind of relax and think about what you've achieved, because you've achieved a great deal. So thank you. Finally, I do want to thank our hosts here at Nitrogen, especially Dan Bolton. He's kind of like the brains behind this incredible event. They have been nothing but supportive, truly welcoming. I mean, think about it. We just went to them and said, can we slap a conference onto your other conference? And they were like, yeah, no problem. And they've been really not just welcoming, but actually helpful and supportive throughout. So I appreciate that. I have been, you know, I used to be a financial advisor like a lot of y'all, and I didn't know anything about starting a software company. And so I had to look out into the market for examples to try to emulate. And I've always been impressed by Riskalyze, now Nitrogen, and just the quality of their execution over the years, right? It's one thing to have a great product, which they have, and we aspire to have too, but to just day after day execute well and not make mistakes and just be at the highest level, that's hard to do, but that really compounds over time. And so I just have really appreciated watching them and learning from their example. So you're going to have a great event over the next few days because they get it right every time. They're fantastic. All right. So thank you to all those people. All right, so estate planning, that's why we're here to talk about estate. So one of the things that I am personally bad at doing when we launch new things is explaining why it's an important thing. I would just we'll make a new estate thing and we'll be like, boom, there it is, put it out on YouTube, good luck. And we don't actually explain okay, why? Why do we care about estate? We've made that mistake before. I'm hoping a lot of you in the room know why estate would be an important thing to invest in, but I'll take you through some slides that my colleagues helped me put together. So I think y'all have seen this stat, right? Baby boomers, 84 trillion. Is that a real number? $84 trillion being transferred over the next 20 or so years. I tend to believe it. I think I've seen that before. But a lot of those assets are managed by you, financial advisors. And y'all saw that in the last presentation. Man, we can't help ourselves, our tech vendors. We love that one slide of the clients expect this service and then how many of them actually get it. We can't get enough of that slide. So I apologize for all the times you've seen it and will see it in your lives. But this was the estate section, right? 93% of your clients expect estate planning. Only 22% actually receive it. And really, this is this was the challenge of companies like HolistiPlan that we're trying to address, which is people want financial planning and we want to give it to them, but it's just so unscalable. It's just so hard. Like estate planning in particular, think of all the levels of information you need to know about a client to even begin to have that conversation. I would argue though, that you are the best person to have that conversation. So one of the things you'll get we had this when we started launching a tax product, we have a property and casualty insurance product, and now with estate, you're going to get the response from advisors I'm not an estate attorney, I'm not a lawyer. That's someone else is better placed to do that than me. They're better trained to do that than me. I would argue that it's absolutely you're the right person. First of all, there's a reason it's part of the CFP curriculum, estate planning. But just to take it a little bit more back to just even like the moral imperative, your clients have trusted you with their life savings, right? Everything that you see, like think of all the people in their lives that they've trusted to know everything about their money. Probably not even some members of their family, but you're one of them. And they've shared with you their values associated with how they earn that money, how they spend that money. They've shared with you their relationships with their family. Y'all know this better than maybe anyone else in their lives. So you are the most logical person, like it or not. And if you feel trained up enough for it or not, like it or not, you are the most logical person for them to turn to deliver estate planning. That's my argument. And the CFP board agrees with me. I mean, that's the critical pillar of the curriculum. Okay, so if we agree that we should be doing estate planning, and if we're going to go off and try to build a software product to help you do it, the first question is like, what actually is estate planning? And I've been doing a lot of demos and conversations with advisory firms and advisors, and it's actually pretty interesting how different the answers are to that. And so we as a profession need to kind of coalesce around what we even mean it is. And I've got a framing device I'll share with you on that. Is it writing the documents? Part of it is, yeah, part of it is. And that's actually the piece that we as advisors, and there may be a few lawyers in the room, Debbie, always showing us up. She's a lawyer, of course, but that's something that you would get a professional to do. But what is estate planning? Also, in my advisory days, I used to go to a lot of conferences, and it'd be really easy to think that estate planning is just avoiding estate taxes, because like every presentation you see at a conference, like how many Robert Keebler presentations have you all sat through at AICPA or whatever, right? He's great, but you come home all jazzed up, and you know, I would have like 1 out of 100 clients who had an estate tax problem. So what about everybody else? They deserve estate tax planning, right? Estate planning, not estate tax planning. So I gave myself, in fact, actually, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but it's definitely not just estate tax planning, right? Like 0.08 of all estates were taxable. And I think, to be fair, what's not on here is the people who actually did the work to avoid estate taxes. So like, but the reality is how many people have $25 million? That's probably the better chart, but I just thought this was interesting. And I know the argument, this is way too small to read, but there is this sunset potentially looming in 2026. And so my argument about estate taxes being less of a priority is maybe going to be adjusted in 2026. I'll give you my personal opinion. There's a lot of multimillionaires in Congress, and a lot of their friends and donors are multimillionaires. I'd be really interested to see if the exemption drops, but we'll know. We'll probably know in about 18 months what's going to happen to it. But anyway, the point is there's a lot more to estate planning than writing documents and having conversations about avoiding estate taxes. I gave myself 1 minute because I knew if I tried to make one slide with all the things that estate planning is, I would take a year to do it. So I literally set a timer. I gave myself 1 minute. And in fact, I missed some things. I missed the thing that we're going to talk about today on this chart. But I think it's really easy as you start to get into it. Estate touches a lot of stuff, just the way tax touches a lot of stuff. So anyway, that's what estate planning is. But I've got a different way of framing it, because I think there's just, if you look at this list, you're like, that's too much. There was a question about like, how do I drink from this fire hose? Like, this is a freaking fire hose. We don't want it to get into this. So I'm going with this. This is our new framing for estate planning, all right? If you can believe it, this is a selfie. Like, I knew that this picture was happening. I didn't smile. I didn't look at the camera. Like, somehow I managed to not take a fantastic picture. Well, my family and I, we went to Alaska this summer. Incredible. Like, my oldest kid is halfway through high school, so we only have a few summers left. So we're trying to get all our big bucket list trips together. Alaska's amazing. You don't even need a passport to go there, and it's just like this other world. It's incredible. And we saw bears and whales and all kinds of cool stuff. But what really, honestly, like impacted me was the glaciers. Okay. This, again, this is a terrible, terrible picture, but this is the South Sawyer Glacier, which is not far from Juneau, Alaska, the capital of Alaska. And terrible picture, I realize, but the width of that glacier is 1/3 of a mile long. Okay, just to kind of imagine the scale there. So I don't know, kind of triangulate the math there. It's like a 25-story building you're looking at there. And what's amazing about a glacier is like you can sit there and look at this thing. It's enormous, it's vast, but it's moving. That's what's incredible about it, right? It's geology happening during a human lifespan. Now, the thing about a glacier is, you know, I was sitting there, I don't know, we were there for an hour looking at this thing, and you see a couple little pieces. That's actually an iceberg right behind me. You'll see pieces kind of fall off and stuff like that. But in general, you can sit there and look at a glacier for a day or a month or a week, and not much, you don't see much happening. Maybe a couple little pieces fall off here and there. To really see what's going on with a glacier, you have to take a time-lapse picture. And you can Google this. You can look on YouTube. Sadly, there's not a lot of good videos of like glacier time-lapse. But it's when you look at it year after year after year that you can see this glacier is moving. And if you guess where the extended metaphor was going, that's a state. A state is a glacier, right? It's not enough to just take some snapshot right when your client comes in for the first time and say, this is your estate plan. Let's look at it again in 15 years when you redo it. Because the reality is, even though it's imperceptible, it is moving, even the instant your client walks out of your office, right? So you do an estate plan review with your client, they walk out of your office the next day, hate to break it to you, but we all get a day older every day, right? Again, imperceptible, but the glacier is moving every day. We all get older, our kids all get a day older, our parents, our brother-in-law, who we named as our backup executor, all a day older. We learn more every day, every year about how our kids are going to handle money, the decisions about can they handle money, or are they able to do this when you put it in trust. We know more about our own families. My kid gets married and suddenly there's a new person in their life. Our relationships change. That brother-in-law and I, we had a fight about politics at Thanksgiving last year. There's a lot of that going around these days. These things can happen, right? Now, just like a glacier, if I just looked at it day over day, nothing happens. But the point is, the point I'm making and the opinion that is behind our design of our software is the advisor provides value in a state, not just from a snapshot like this, but also from the time lapse coming back to it year after year. Oh, of course, also your asset mix changes, and that's literally every day, right? The amount of money you have is different every day, generally. And then also the mix of where it is across your accounts changes every day. So anyway, estate is a glacier, and we try to build a software to allow you to do that. I'm going to switch computers for now. While I'm doing that, by the way, if you find that, wait, this is the computer I want. That's the computer I want to switch to. If you like that framing, the geology framing, tax is like a volcano, right? I mean, every year, tax planning is how Holistiplan got famous. I don't know if y'all are all Holistiplan people, but if you're not, all right, let me get organized here. Sorry. All right. Yeah, tax, we get an eruption of new information every year, right? Every year there's like a new tax return and there's new rules, and then you get the lava's flowing now. We got to get all these Roth conversions done by December 31st. So yeah, estate is a glacier. Tax is a volcano. Someone can figure out what property and casualty insurance is here. I don't know what that is, but okay. So again, so we built a product that I think enables the advisor to not just do a review, but also to come back to the estate plan in intervals so that we can monitor that glacier as it moves. All right. So for those of you who have used Holistiplan before, by the way, I'm going to make a lot of assumptions that you have. So if you're new to Holistiplan, take a look at it another time. But I'm going to say things like, it's just like this other report. And if you don't know what that other report looks like, it might make a little less sense. But this is our household screen. And estate's just there along with tax and property and casualty. There's really 4 main areas we've got here. 3 of them are reports, and then one of them is a report, but a little different. I will start with the wills and trust thing. To me, like that's still like your baseline. That's like you drove up to the glacier and you take that first picture of where we're at. We're going to look at their wills and trusts. I will say this software is still in flight, so just give me a little bit of grace on the user experience, but we're doing our best. With the will and trust, it's going to be the same thing as what you're used to on, I'm going to go straight to the report. The same thing as what you're used to on tax and property casualty. Upload the documents, we will onboard the information, and we'll tell you when that information is ready. Will it take 45 seconds like tax? The answer is no. It will not take 45 seconds. There's going to be, there's some interesting stuff we're doing with machine learning to like language processing to read in some of the information, but still, I feel comfortable with a human in the loop. So there will be a human review when you upload these documents. So your estate plan, also what's a little different about estate plan versus tax is like you could have a whole bunch of documents. I got mine, I got my wife's will, we've got a codicil, and we've got a living trust and an amendment to that. The idea is dump them all in one box, hit upload, and then we can sort out all the pieces of it. Not too different from what we do on the property casualty side, where you've got home, auto, and umbrella insurance, 3 documents, similar deal. So, okay, so the actual report that you would get out, the actual thing that we're going through with our client, if you are used to our tax report and our property casualty report, very similar, where we're going to put the main like key figures up top, and then we're going to give you insights, the talking points, the conversation starters at the bottom. So you're used to this in our other reports. And so this client had, I guess, 2 pour-over wills. They have a living trust. And so the first thing is just like, who are my agents who I've named to be my people, right? So I've got my executors, my guardians, my trustees. We do highlight, I'm a believer in trust protectors and trustee appointers. Very rare to see them on documents, but it's just anyone who's been involved in a case where a client needs to restate a trust. It's not that fun of a process, and it's nice to have some of these kind of breakpoints out there. And that's the area where we as advisors can add value, I think. Like, we're not there to draft the documents, but we have experience with dealing with the actual implementation of these documents. That's the place where we're able to add value, and because we're going to be there when it actually happens. Okay, the big thing then is like, who gets what, right? Your client cares about who are my people I named, and then tell me who's getting what. Like, those are the 2 big headlines. So we have this technology to kind of like read in what's happening on the first and second death. Here's the case where the estate plan is really 2 people. Like, your client comes in, they're not thinking about themselves in a vacuum. Their estate plan is theirs jointly. And so we're showing what happens on the first and second death. You can see I guess this guy's got what? He's got the surviving spouse, and then I guess we fund a family trust, and then there's a Q-tip if we're over the exemption amount. So kind of like an old school, there's no disclaimer on this. But you can see actually some of these bullet points. We try to bring in a little bit of talking point stuff even into the diagram. I'll get to insights in a second. But so for example, in this case, we've got a pour-over will, living trust. And I think a lot of times your client might think that when I set this up and like each of our living trust says everything goes to my kids. On the first death, everything goes in this family trust, and then on the second death, it goes to my kids. And then you might be like, all right, great, my kids are all set for life. But the reality is that doesn't necessarily protect against the surviving spouse getting remarried, naming somebody else. And we may have had examples where we've seen that in our practices. And so to me, it's worth raising with the client, just so you know, you may have drawn it up in a certain way in the lawyer's office, but just so you know, like, there is potentially this thing where it could get changed, right? That's our job as an advisor, just like bring up these talking points, discussion points with the client. Once you get into, this has several testamentary trusts, the kids get certain amounts at certain ages. Then you get into the insights. And so if you're used to Holistic Plan, other reports, you know, like basically our insights are generally a mix of like, there's some canned things in there. So like one example is like, does your executor know where your will is kept? And Have you asked your executor if they want to be your executor or not? Like, those are just standard things that good conversation starters, but we drop those into everyone. Some of these are actually based on the other information that's been entered. So I'm going to like highlight one here if I can without a mouse. I don't know if you looked at it earlier when I was in the executor session, but they named their backup executors was 2 people jointly. And so for those of you in the room who've dealt with that on an actual estate, that can be a bit of a nightmare trying to get 2 people to sign everything, right? I see some shaking of heads, like y'all live with that. And I get the idea. The client is sitting in their lawyer's office and they're like, look, I love both my kids the same. I want to name them both executor. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And the lawyers are like, yep, no problem. They'll both be executor. We're the ones who are going to have to deal with it as advisors 10 years from now, right? And so, and we're not passing judgment on the client or their lawyer, but we at least need to raise it. Like, look, just so you know, based on my experience, this is a thing that could happen. Maybe you just tell your kids you love them equally and you name the one who lives closer, that sort of thing, right? Another thing that I'll highlight, let's see if I can switch tabs here. Going back to the what is estate planning question, here's some questions we have. These are questions that are not in the documents at all. These are questions that you, the advisor, will need to answer, right? This first one here, let's just highlight this one. Does your client have funky collections? Remember that thing about baby boomers we put up earlier? Baby boomers just have more stuff than millennials. Like my dad's got a stamp collection, and it's one of the jokes in our family, like, what is going to happen to this stamp collection when he's gone, right? I mean, I don't know. And we had a client, so in my old firm, we had a client who had an insect collection, like a very vast insect collection. And you might be like, this is not in the CFP curriculum to deal with how to dispose of an insect collection. But remember what I said earlier? Your client's going to come to you. You're the person they trust. You're the person who's already helping them retitle all these accounts and changing who's on the credit card bill and all that stuff. They're going to come to you and say, is this worth something? Like, what do I do with this? We ended up donating that to the university. But these are, wouldn't it be better to have these conversations now when your client is alive than have the surviving spouse come to you with his insect collection? Like, what the heck do I do with this thing? You could have that conversation with a client today and say, like, what do we do about it? Is there somewhere we could, this person who collected the stuff would probably have a better idea of if it's worth something and where it might end up, right? So, and firearms, similar thing. If you have automatic weapons, there's certain rules about putting in a gun trust, like stuff like that. So when we ask, like, what is estate planning? It goes way beyond just documents. It's conversations like these. It's planning. It's having a conversation today rather than later. Okay, how are we on time? Am I yapping too long? Do I need to move on? I hope my colleagues will tell me if I'm going too slow. Going back to the report, I'll get off this report real quick, but we also tried to add in some like explainer type things. So I've got like this person has a living trust with pour over will. Sometimes that's for probate reasons. And so does any of your client know what the heck a probate is? They have no idea, right? So like if we want to explain what the heck probate is, we can drop that section in. I'm going to go way to the bottom here. Pour over will is complicated, right? Like you got to retitle all your stuff, but if you don't, the pour over will takes care of it. Like we try to add some of these like kind of visual ways to say like, here is what's going on. Now that you have this trust, you got to retitle your assets, blah, blah, blah. So that's the idea behind the report, is to help your client, guide your client through one of these conversations about their estate plan, all right? Going back. What's that? You're excited. Okay, good. Thank you. But that's just a piece of it, right? We just took a picture of the face of the glacier. We got to watch this thing now, right? I'm going to go quick on a couple of these other reports. I want to show you another thing. So beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are moving a little faster, right? Because in part because of work that we're doing. We're the ones creating accounts and moving accounts and Roth conversion and stuff like that. And so as we know, who's had one of those cases where you see the ex-wife on a 20-year-old account? I have, right? Yeah, I've had one. That's part of our job too. That's part of our job too, is reviewing beneficiaries. This report's pretty basic. It just like lists them out and when we last looked at them. And then we've got some insights, hey, I noticed that you've got a testamentary trust for your kids in the will. And so let's make sure that your underage children inherit their piece in trust rather than outright, right? Because that has its own problems. I wish there was a way to download this information from the custodians. I don't know, maybe next time you talk to your rep at Schwab or something, just say, look, we need this, it's time. But in the meantime, until the industry catches up with this idea that this is useful information for advisors to have, it's a data entry thing that you'll have to do. But once you do it, it's just a matter of keeping it up to date. I will spare you the power of attorney one. It's the same thing. I mean, basically, who are your people and then insights about it. The insights in the power of attorney report are more about things like, is it springing or not? Does this person have the ability to change beneficiaries on retirement accounts? Because usually that has to be explicitly listed. Sometimes there's definitions around what it even means to be incapacitated. Like sometimes you'll be like, I need 2 doctors to have an opinion on it, and if they disagree, get a 3rd doctor. Like sometimes people write that language into their powers of attorney documents. So that's the sort of stuff we're trying to highlight in those reports. All right, last piece. I'm really hoping someone will signal to me if I'm hurting on time. Oh, we're good, okay. Generally for demos, I have like 20 minutes, and so it's not usually taking too much time. It's like, get it done super fast. So maybe I'll get done early. So the who gets what piece of that diagram I showed y'all, that was kind of zoomed out, right? That was like a structural picture of like, we fund half on the first death, half goes to the surviving spouse, half goes into the family trust. It's zoomed out, and at the client, that may be helpful for them to understand, like, what did we set up? But there are certain cases, maybe all cases when you think about it, where the client's like, okay, can you put dollar amounts on there just so I make sure that who's getting what really matches what I want it to be? That's harder to do, but it's exceedingly valuable. In my old firm, we used to do that for every single client. We would draw a picture at the asset level, at the dollar amount level of who's getting what. And that was tough to do for every client because that is a lot of work to keep up to date. And we've talked to people about how they do this. Some people use Excel. I don't know if y'all like put together a little Excel table. Some people use PowerPoint, right? Excel is great because it's great at math. PowerPoint is great because it's great at presentation. But sadly, Excel is not great at presentation and PowerPoint's not great at math. So we kind of like thought about it, like, what's the best way to present the who gets what story at the asset level? And we landed on like our own version of PowerPoint, okay? Can this be seen? Hopefully it's close enough. I don't know if you're in the back and it's hard to see, but basically this is like a very basic waterfall picture. I made the non-probate stuff in yellow there. So we would make these diagrams for people in PowerPoint. And the hard part is doing the math so let me just add it here. So let's see. Sally's going to inherit this Roth IRA. All right, here we go. Sally. Good job, Sally. There she is. I guess I should have made that non-probate also, right? Let's just color that. So in PowerPoint, to like figure out how much Sally's inherited piece is, I guess this is her, actually this is just her. We had to do that math in PowerPoint, right? What we built is we want to give you the flexibility of drawing it the way you would in PowerPoint, but to do the actual math for you in the screen. And then what that allows us to do, because like, yes, okay, you can do this in PowerPoint, but then if you want your client like 6 months later in their meeting, again, we're trying to take time-lapse photos of this glacier. If your client's like, can you give me an updated version of that picture? Well, now we got to do all the math again. So what we built is like, let's just change Aaron's Roth IRA. It's now worth $250,000 instead of $150,000. I don't know if you saw it flowed through to that value down there, right? So now, yes, we have to draw it the first time. And by we, I mean you, the advisor, because that's not something that Holistic, as much as I would love Holistiplan to do that data entry for you, I don't know your clients, where their assets are, right? So you'll need to draw that up the first time, but then you'll be able to update it as you need to whenever your client comes in. Let me just show some other like examples here. Here's like a bigger one where I've got the kids in there. A lot of times the client's like, look, this is a lot of stuff. Actually, let me go back to one. There's actually something I wanted to highlight there. Like, because I need to remember the why. Sorry, I'm not good at remembering why we're building this thing. There's a couple things that are interesting on this picture, actually, just alone. Remember when the structure of the will said we're going to fund a family trust on the first death, right? I have a real example of this, right? A client, they were a brand new client. They were borderline estate tax problem. They didn't quite have an estate tax problem. So it was critical, and this was before portability. So it was critical that they fund that trust properly. Well, I don't know if you noticed on here, there's a joint tenants with rights of survivorship bank account on there. And I could not get through to this client. Like, you got to retitle that bank account because it's not funding that trust. You did all this work to create this trust in your estate plan. It's not going to get funded because of the titling on the asset. So again, part of estate planning is just looking at titling. Actually, I can click this here. A good way to drive that home is because we have all these values, I can then summarize like what's going on. Like Sally's getting $3.8 million on that first death and the family trust is only getting $500,000. It's not the 50-50 it was supposed to be, right? So that's a good example of where a diagram lets us actually tell a story that's useful for the client to hear, right? Another thing that comes up a lot is like, I just want to make sure the kids are getting an equal amount. You've had this situation where like they have a vacation home or like a mountain cabin and it's been in the family for 4 generations. And okay, well, let's give that to one of the kids, but then we don't want to make sure that we give enough money to the other kids to make it even and all these sorts of things you have to do. They just want to know, is the plan even? And then we can draw that up and give that to them with a diagram like this. One thing I'll just say, I wish that I had some names I could drop in this announcement, but let's just say this. Remember when I updated that Roth IRA amount? I said it 250,000 or whatever. You have other products in your tech stack that already know this information, right? So this is a logical place for an integration. And we're talking to a few people. It's not at the stage where I'm able to name names, but wouldn't it be amazing to just draw this once and then link that to your product that shows what these values are? He's pumped. Okay. All right. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Because I'll tell you my dream. I would love for advisors to be able to slide this diagram across the table to their clients in every meeting, every year. That's the time lapse of that glacier, right? It's been so hard to build this diagram that we only do it like once every few years. And so things get dropped, things get missed. But if we can provide that to the client every year and also just show that value, like we're looking at this together. We're marching in lockstep on your estate plan year after year. These are time-lapse photos of it. I think that's incredibly powerful. A couple more things and then I'll wrap. I get into these things, cool. But like, here's another example where you could use something like this. This is a client who says, I want to give $1 million to charity and then everything else goes to my kids. Super admirable, right? And if you go into the lawyer, the estate attorney, they're probably like, yeah, cool. Okay, I'm going to write up your documents for $1 million to go to charity and then everything else goes to your kids. No problem. And I've lived through this, actually. I had an attorney not ask tell me about the retirement assets. And so one way you could communicate this story is you say, well, actually, hidden within this piece here where the daughters, Jennifer and Emily, are inheriting this IRA, there's a chunk that's going to the IRS eventually, right? Like it or not, it's happening. It's kind of hidden in there. The IRS is one of your heirs. Now, if I'm the advisor and I see a $3 million IRA and they want to give $1 million to charity, wouldn't it be an interesting idea to have that come out of the IRA instead of out of the probate estate, right? And so I can actually demonstrate that to the client. You know, those of you who use Holistic Plan on scenario analysis, it's kind of like a scenario we're doing here, right? Let me show you the example where we're giving $1 million to charity through the IRA. Well, look at that. Instead of $750,000 to the IRS, it's, what is it? $510,000. Charity still gets their money and the kids get more money as well, right? It's a tax-free withdrawal from the IRA. Like, to me, that's a really powerful way of describing and selling this idea to your client that allows them to optimize their estate plan. And I have lived through examples where the lawyer didn't go into this level of detail and we were able to help the client with it. Last thing on this one idea here, one of the things that happens that when you do this strategy where you're given to charity from the IRA is, unfortunately, at least all the custodians that I've ever worked with, they make you put a percent instead of a dollar amount. You can't just put $1 million of charity and everything else here. You have to put percents. And so there's kind of a moving target situation. So like, just to kind of pull the IRS piece out, this is a $3 million IRA, and I want to give $1 million of charity. It kind of like, it's pretty close if I can say 33% goes to charity. But suddenly if I adjust this to, again, the values changed, the glacier moved, and whatever we set up last time we updated those beneficiaries, now charity's more than $1 million. And so one thing that we would do with some of our clients is we would, we get up, boy, I'm not going to get the math right here. Let's see here. It tells me I'm going to get it wrong. That's pretty close. Right now, I readjusted my beneficiary designations, got it back to that $1 million area, right? And so again, you can do that with a product like this, because once you get those new values in, you slide that thing across the table to your client, and they're like, oh, instead of $1 million, it's 1.1 million. Let's redo the beneficiaries. They can make that choice for you. So I'm really excited about this piece of it, because to me, this piece here is what brings it from just a once a 10-year conversation to that time lapse where you're helping the client watch that glacier as it moves through that valley. Okay. One thing you'll notice that was not in anything I talked about, let me go back. Notice that nothing I talked about was about generating documents, okay? We have made a choice that that's not our business. Our business is helping you advisors review stuff, have good conversations with your clients. I recognize, though, that sometimes those conversations do turn into a conversation about getting new documents. That's a piece that we understand needs to be part of the solution. And rather than us building that, we see ourselves linking out to other third parties who can do that. I think that is it. So I'm going to switch computers because there's a thing, Laura, I need to put up. All right, so everyone bear with me here. Did anyone figure out what geological metaphor to use for property and casualty reviews? Did we think of that yet? Well, I'm switching computers. Mudslide. Oof, too soon on some of these things. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Some glasses off. I've got some bad news, folks. Once you see this, there's that guy again. All right, that's all right. We're done with that guy. Okay, so when and how much? I don't know the answer to how much. The answer to when is early 2025. We're still kind of putting the finishing touches on the user experience. I mean, you kind of saw like what the outputs look like. That generally is what it's going to be like. It's the user experience of getting those documents uploaded, and then also building the infrastructure to do those document reviews. I mean, honestly, I don't want to fall down on the job on that. I don't want to miss on that. So we got to make sure that we have the infrastructure built to do that well and to do it fast enough that, you didn't wait a month to get a freaking estate looked at. To me, the ideal is you upload a document, you're able to have a conversation with your client about that document a week later. And I understand that part of that is us doing data entry, part of that is you doing review. So that's kind of like the guide in my mind about how long that would be. We got to build that infrastructure. So again, early 2025 is what we're looking at. We're going to have some people are trying it out right now as we speak. But if you'd like to kind of like learn more and us to tell you when it's ready, this QR code will do something for you, all right? That'll get you on a list.
That'll get you on the list.
That'll get you on the list. Okay. That is it. Again, I really, really appreciate all the support that you have given us over the years. I used to be a financial advisor just like you. I'm doing this because I'm inspired by the work that you do. It wasn't the right career for me. I did it for 10 years, but I knew it wasn't my future. But it really inspires me to see the work that you're doing, and we will continue to do everything we can to earn that support as you go out and do great work for clients. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger.
Lunch. There's lunch.
There's lunch.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Roger. That was awesome. All right. Thank you guys all so much for being here today. I hope you enjoyed it. Lunch is ready. So we have lunch outside. If you want to go grab lunch, you can come back in and hang out here for a little while. Hopefully you're hungry. We also have a number of breakouts later this afternoon at the Nitrogen Conference. So there'll be 3 today and then 3 tomorrow. So check the Nitrogen app if you're interested in more tax planning. But thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.